Well, there are believers and there are non-believers. Some people are born with the faith and others have to go through something of a conversion. So the question is, when were you converted to Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum's way of doing things? Whereas before there was some doubt, now expectation and belief. England just 5 wickets away from their first test win here in New Zealand since 2008. And in the main, it was thanks to a man who back then was playing in just his second test match. Today plays in his 160th. The first 2 sessions are all about the bat. The last session was all about Broad. In Mount Maunganui at the top of the North Island. And if day 3 is anything as good as days 1 and 2, then we're in for a treat.
It's a very good bouncer, and Stuart Broad can't handle it. Bounces out behind square on the offside, and a simple catch is taken short. Pulled by Ollie Pope, and he's got right underneath it and helped it away onto the bank over fine leg for 6.
Root doing the same. He goes across his stumps, gets inside the line, hits down to up, hits it over. This one is hit high. This is the biggest of the bunch. A 50-run partnership in 28 minutes. Test cricket. Short again, leg side, bigger pound for caught behind.
Straight in the right hand. Pope will have to go.
That is pitched up, and it's driven gloriously by Harry Pope through extra cover.
Brook goes outside of off stump and clubs him back over his head. One bounce into the fence for 4. Joe Root, chalk up another half century. 50 off 52, 5 fours, 1 6. The Rolls Royce is purring today, and that will allow Brook to calmly play through mid-on, and he too can join Joe Root on 50. Well played. What a start to his test career. Tickner has a wicket, caught it, slip. Brook.
Last ball. Oh, there's a catcher there. Yes, there is. It's Joe Root on the reverse sweep. New Zealand strike with the final ball of the session. England 237 for 6.
Here's a pull shot that's very fine. Almost scooped it around the corner, and it's travelled over the boundary for 6. A huge smile on Stokes' face tells me everything I need to know about this. Gets inside the line, he pulls away to fine leg. Wagner! Well, you can add another 6. He takes the catch and trips over the rope and falls over. This game that has just been so entertaining.
Yep, that's another record. Ben Stokes became the leading 6-hitter in the history of Test cricket with his 109th today. Down the wicket comes Stokes, and is stumped. Down the wicket, looking to thump it over long on, and Ben Stokes delights in dispatching it to deep moving. It's another short one, it's another pull shot from Stokes, and it's another boundary.
Pulled away powerfully forward of square out of the fence, not for 4 because Bracewell slides. But a half century nonetheless for Stokes. A really good knock from a very good player. Oh, he's feathered an edge and he's gone, pressing forward. Tickner's got one to bounce on him, and Stokes goes
Short and slapped away by Robinson through mid-off for 4. That was absolutely dismissive. 349 for 8, 69 overs gone. England lead by 368.
Another wicket, and Robinson again, a man who'd got in, decided to hurry things up.
Stumped him. Bracewell turns it past Jack Leach, who's on the charge, swinging lustily. The Black Caps of New Zealand will require 394 to win this first test match.
Away with a crisp stroke through mid-wicket, just slightly over-pitched, kept the balance and nudged it through the gap and out to the fence for 4. And here's another one, because Broad's got it to nip back and bowled as Devon Conway. Beauty from Broad.
Out! Kane Williamson has just chopped on. It's that angle of attack from England and Stuart Broad. And Williamson has got to go for a duck. And he's got him! 3rd wicket for Stuart Broad. Latham's got to go for 15.
It's an edge, gone. Stokes takes the catch. Nichols is gone. New Zealand are 4 down.
Bowled another. Would you believe it? He's got 4. All bowled. New Zealand have been shredded.
End of day 3. New Zealand are 63 for 5. New Zealand are still 331 runs away from their victory target.
Well, England are used to playing fast-forward cricket, and for a space of about half an hour last night, we thought that maybe this game here at the Bay Oval in Mount Maunganui may actually have finished late on day 3. It hasn't. We're back, and I'm alongside Steve Harmison, myself, John Norman. Harby, we're just by the strip, by the pitch. I mean, day 4 track essentially. it's not going to make a great deal, is it, of difference to the result? But what are your thoughts looking out at this strip?
It looks a flat wicket. For the straw colour grass that's on it now, completely different to what it looked like 2 days out, and then 1 day out, and even on the morning or the afternoon when we first started, there was a little green glow to it. So obviously it's dried out. But what Stuart Broad used yesterday, and why he was so good yesterday, was there's an area just outside off stump on either side where the indentations have dried out. When the indentations have dried out, there's a little, the gouge that they take out of the surface. Stuart Broad hit them perfectly yesterday, and that's why, with a brand new ball, he's got the ball to nip back twice to go through the right-handers. He said on interview with Sam Ellard last night, the special one was Kane Williamson. I actually thought that Tom Blundell was the better ball, but Kane Williamson, being the batsman that he is, it nipped back, beat him all ends up through the gear. And when you look at it now, you still see, as the roller's going up and down on it, there's still scar tissue, there's scarring areas that's around them indentations, and you can see this wicket is a flat wicket, but if you hit one of them, and they're very, very small areas, you manage to hit one of them small areas, that's when the ball's going to do a little bit. It's either going to move laterally or it's going to bounce. And in Stuart Broad's case, from both over and round the wicket to left and right hander, in and around that sort of 6 metre mark, there's still the issue there, the scar issues are there, and that's what Stuart Broad hit yesterday. So accurate, knees pumping, and he got the ball to nip back through to the left-handers, and he obviously got the nip back through to the right-handers as well, and that's why he's got 4 bowled. Normally you don't see in Test match cricket too many batsmen in the top 6 get bowled, but because there was a deviation that much off this area, the rest of the pitch is fine. The rest of the pitch is perfect. No real spin in it, but the indentations that are there, Stuart Broad has made use of them perfectly well.
It's a team game, cricket, 11 against 11, but you never get 11 on the same field as the other 11 unless we're in a warm-up. And behind us here, Jeeta Patel's just going through fielding drills. Brendan McCullum's got the bat in hand, 4 slips in place. Zach Crawley, one of them. He put down a chance yesterday, as he did on day 1. Jimmy Anderson, unfortunately, not getting the wicket that he possibly felt he deserved. But, of course, alongside Stuart Broad, the two went past 1,000 Test wickets as a partnership. And like 2 days ago, when Sam Ellard caught up with Stuart Broad, just a few moments ago, he did the same thing with Jimmy Anderson.
Yeah, Jimmy Anderson, thank you very much for speaking with TalkSport. The shades are on, you're looking good. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. I'm fresh. Didn't bowl much yesterday, so I'm feeling good. But yeah, it's an exciting day to come to the ground when you've got a chance of winning a game. We know it's not going to be easy. Different conditions to what we experienced last night under the lights when it was doing quite a bit. Today's going to be a little bit harder, I would imagine. Less movement. So we've just got to try and be as ruthless as we can, and we've got 5 really big wickets to take.
And look, it's unlikely New Zealand can win this game, but you're expecting absolute bare minimum just for the pride. They're going to fight hard, aren't they, to try and survive and make it as hard as possible for England this evening? Yeah,
of course they are. That's what we expect from any international team, but New Zealand, having played against them quite a lot, we know that's what they're going to come trying to be as positive as they can and try and. I don't think they'll try and survive the game because batting for 2 days is going to be a tough ask. I think they'll try and win the game for sure. They've still got 2 really talented batters at the crease, so we've got to be as good with the ball today as we were last night. If we can do that and be ruthless and relentless all day, then hopefully we can get those 5 wickets.
And it was pretty special last night watching your mate Stuart Broad come charging in. He bowled a pretty long spell. He picked up 4 wickets. It was a vintage Stuart Broad spell. What did you make of being up there close and personal watching it? That was Broad at his best, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. Excuse me. I think I've been lucky enough to be on the field for quite a lot of his spells like these bowled over the years. When he gets on a roll like that, it's incredible to watch. And I've, as well as being in awe, I'm not sort of jealous as well that I can't do the same. It takes me a lot longer to get my wickets. So it was just phenomenal to be on the field for that. He's an incredible bowler. He's worked so hard certainly over the last few months since he wasn't in Pakistan, so he's not played cricket for quite a while. So to be back out on the field and bowling as well as he is, I think is a credit to him.
It's also a pretty historic Test match for you both, a pretty incredible achievement, overtaking Warner McGrath as the 2 bowlers, the most Test wickets taken together on the pitch. You've gone over 1,000. You've broken so many records, Jimmy, but that must be a pretty special one, especially to do it with someone who you're such good mates with.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing to think that we've taken that many wickets and we're up on that list with some of the greats of the game. It's a bit surreal, really. But yeah, I'm sure we'll sit down after this game and have a glass of wine and really sort of cherish what we've achieved.
Well, I was going to say to you, when I asked you about Valentine's Day last week, your Valentine's Day answer went down so well, and you were so dismissive of the idea. You hate it. I'm not interested in it, but would be a bit more special this evening. You and Broady celebrating. Is it a glass of red? Maybe a movie together. Anything else lined up?
I'm not sure we're going to take it that far. I think we'll hopefully, if we can get the win today, we'll have a few drinks together as a team and really enjoy the week. Because I think we've played some really good cricket over the last 3 days. Our batting's been amazing, as it has been for the last sort of 12 months almost. And as bowlers, we want to try and back them up as much as we can, and hopefully we can finish the job and enjoy the win. One
question on the batsman. I've walked around this ground a few times over the last couple of days. You can't walk 10 steps without someone mentioning Harry Brook. Everyone just seems to be in awe of this kid. I know we didn't get 100 this match, but is there just more evidence over the past couple of days of how much of a special talent this kid is? Yeah, he's a frightening talent. It's hard to look at anyone else as being the best player in the world at the minute. Wow. That's how good he is. He's just phenomenal. We bowl at him in the nets, and it's difficult to see where to bowl to him and how to get him out. We just saw more evidence of what great form he's in, and that talent. He can hit any ball to any part of the ground, which is a frightening ability, and hopefully he can just go from strength to strength now. And last question, Jimmy, 5 wickets needed here. What's the key early on to try and get through this New Zealand tail and lower order? Because in particular, in that first innings, they made it hard for you guys. Yeah, they did. It was, they did make it difficult for us. I think it's just a case of trying to be ruthless. If we get an opportunity, we've got to take it. We know it's not going to do as much as last night. It's going to be a case of trying to just, be relentless with our lines and lengths, test their defence. We'll definitely continue to set attacking fields, get catches in areas where hopefully we can create chances. Just if it takes us 2 hours or 6 hours, we'll just stick at our task and hopefully get the job done. Someone's booked a table with dinner, TalkSport tonight, 7 p.m. Is that a bit ambitious, do you reckon? 7 p.m? It could be ambitious, but we'll do our best to try and get you there. I know you will. That's why we love you, Jimmy. Good luck. Cheers, mate.
Good old Jimmy Anderson. Steve Harmison, he's saying he's going to do his best to make sure we make that 7 o'clock dinner booking, which some people have said I'm being a little bit over ambitious with my timings, but Mark Kelly, our Tauranga born and bred producer, he says it's dropping anyway. It's pretty relaxed in this part of the world. It doesn't matter what time we turn up. I don't think they're going to be turning us away.
No, not with the size of me and Sam coming for dinner. They're going to make a few quid, aren't they? So no, I think we'll comfortably get. I think it's one of them situations where you might find there'll be a partnership for 20-25 minutes, half an hour, and then England will lose.
I tell you what, it's getting a little bit emotional back here in New Zealand. You're all right? You're back with us?
I'm back with you, yeah. I'm thinking about the Newcastle result and Nick Pope missing the cup final, poor lad. But no, it'll be one of them. There'll be a partnership. It'll go for 25 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe it's a bit more, and then you'll find it go bang, bang, bang. There will be 3 wickets in a short space of time, because I think the last hope for New Zealand to bat for any length of time is the 2 that are in the middle, and the form that Broad, Anderson, Robinson are in, they're not going to get too many runs, too many freebies that England got to get them off to a flying start and feel comfortable. And then all of a sudden, if there are a good passage of bowling, if they make the breakthrough, then I can see the bowlers just crumpling in a heap.
And Jimmy's saying that there's none better in Test cricket or in international cricket than Harry Brook right now.
No, I don't think there is. I think in all formats, I think Harry Brook is as good as anybody around the world. I can probably think of Babar Azam from Pakistan, who is probably up there in multi-format as one of the best players in the world at this minute in time. But for somebody who plays all formats, like we've seen in Harry, who's done that in Pakistan and then in the World Cup, T20, and then over here as well as Pakistan in the Test matches, I think from a multi-format point of view, I'm looking around and thinking, other than Babar Azam, I don't think he's got much competition. I think Harry Brook is probably the most informed batsman in world cricket at this minute in time, and I think the ceiling height of him is endless, to be fair, and he's going to be up there with the likes of Joe Root and Yeah, Sir Alistair Cook, Kevin Peterson, the modern day greats of the game, if he continues to carry on this path.
So, as promised, Daniel McHardy alongside me. We've just been shooed from the pitch, so we're just by the boundary. But essentially, Daniel, we're here today. We won't be here tomorrow. I'm trying to get your flights moved forward. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to manage that because everyone's it's a weekend back home. But essentially, I mean, we know that at some point today, unless miracles do happen, it's going to be an England win. I think the question that I've got for you is, how do New Zealand stop the wheels coming off? What can they possibly do to arrest this slide of form? Because this is not a shock defeat. New Zealand lost to Bangladesh in this country at this ground 12 months ago. They lost to South Africa in New Zealand. They of course lost to England 3 times. There's just a feeling we're reaching a tipping point with this New Zealand side. Would you agree with that?
I think we've already reached that. We're on the way down. I would have thought the Bangladesh test match was exactly that. We're seeing a side that's come from dizzying heights, literally top of the cricketing world as far as test cricket is concerned, and they've come down and they're up against a side who is just so exuberant, full of confidence and self-belief, when New Zealand have been a little bit tentative. Just look at the way the two batting groups have used the crease. England have been literally on the front foot, if not taking strides down the wicket to meet the ball. New Zealand hovering crease line. So today is closing day. I'd be very surprised if we get beyond the end of the second session. I think I threw my own into the sweepstakes that are going around into the second session late on. But it's all about the pride in the fight. That should be the mantra. Daryl Mitchell is a true fighter. He'll love this opportunity to be another thorn in the backside of England. Michael Bracewell strikes me as a nervous starter, so I'm nervous for him through the opening, say, 20 minutes, half an hour. But if he can get going, and I love to see him play his true game once he is in. He's one of the cleanest strikers of a cricket ball you will see. And those fans on the embankment on this pretty large ground, we need to pay attention. Beyond that, you're into the bowlers, and the bowlers aren't in this to score huge amounts of runs, so there's not much to expect. So for England, they're probably thinking one's enough to really open the door, and they'd love to see it. So pride in the fight, try and ruin some sweepstakes, maybe focus on just trying to take this as deep as possible, and try to finish off with a little positive. They've been second best throughout. They've been hanging off the coattails of England until the last session last night, where England blew them away. Little mini victories if they can show some fight, push this for as long as possible. That will at least give them something to latch onto. I thought the bowling group got better throughout this test match. Henry's going to come back in, and we know traditionally, if you look at their records, the batsmen are better than what they have shown here, and they won't have to dealing with this incredibly impressive English attack under lights in Wellington.
Well, that was a point that Michael Bracewell made when speaking to the media late last night. Felt New Zealand a little bit unlucky, having to bat under lights twice in 3 days.
Yeah, I guess that's not something that you can predict straight away by winning the toss. So, yeah, it'll be pretty silly for us to have regrets about those sorts of things. Maybe it's something that we can learn for future pink ball tests. But, yeah, it's one of those things, I think. If we bowled really well in that first innings and maybe had a little bit more time before the really challenging period started, then things could have been a little bit different. So, yeah, not a huge fan of looking backwards too much and more looking forwards.
Michael Bracewell there speaking to the media following a damaging day for New Zealand, a damaging night really. They'd battled really well through the first 2 sessions, but it all came unstuck in that final couple of hours here at the Bay Oval. Right, myself, John Norman, still on the pitch out here. I can see that our colleagues from Today FM equally so. The players, though, all back in, well, you couldn't really call it a pavilion, more of a dressing room, and action about to get underway in the next few moments here at the Bay Oval, live and exclusive on TalkSport 2. As mentioned a few moments ago, we're also going to be bringing you action from Delhi, that second test between India and Australia. Adam Collins, Gerard Watley and the SEN crew are going to be broadcasting with that match firmly in the balance. Big news coming out of the Australia camp with the Ashes taking place in 4 or 5 months time now. David Warner out of the second test with a concussion, and he also suffered a break in his arm as well, so doubts surrounding his fitness as well as his form. He's not looked at the player overseas that we would have recognised a few years back. So problems mounting for Australia, but they're certainly in a position to go on and win that test match. We'll be bringing that to you within about half an hour of this match finishing here in Mount Maunganui. So live test cricket all the way up to about 11:30. We've got football across the TalkSport network as well this afternoon. Harmy's gone. I'm sure at some point he's going to mention again the ridiculous situation that has afflicted his beloved Newcastle team. Not 24 hours after getting two of his kids' tickets via hook and crook to Wembley, Nick Pope sadly ruled out of that game after an incident today at St James's. But we'll also be hearing from another Pope, very proud Pope parents, Ollie Pope. Sam Ellard caught up with Ollie Pope's parents yesterday, so we're going to be hearing that during the tea break as well. Right, okay, I think it's time for me to get a flat white, and I can see a thumb in the air from Neil Manthorpe. Now that means one of two things. Either he wants an Americano, two thumbs up from the commentary box, and Steve Harmison as well, but Harmy doesn't drink coffee, so I'll get you an Americano, Manners, if you are happy to pick up commentary now.
Thank you very much indeed, John. I very much look forward to the coffee. It's a robust organic blend which New Zealand is famous for. The coffee is wonderful in this country, but then most things are wonderful in this country. I can't think of anything that isn't. I took John up Mount Maunganui this morning, and that was absolutely fabulous. My third time up the mountain. It doesn't look as high as it is from any vantage point in the town, but once you start the climb, you realise that it is a mountain. It's maybe a small mountain, but it is 1,400 metres to the top, and the views are absolutely spectacular. Harmy, you've got one more day, my friend, to join me on the walk to the top, and it's worth it. You don't have to run.
Is there a cable car? There's no chance of me going up there. Look, one thing, I'm not get up there. I think if my wife Haley's listening, she'll be saying, well, the life insurance is sorted, we're all good, yeah, go on, off you go, help yourself on your way up. I don't think I'll get up there, to be honest, Manners, but it does. I've seen the pictures. It does look an absolute picture. And John Norman and yourself, they're right. There's nothing wrong with this country. Everything is absolutely beautiful about it. The food's great. The hospitality is unbelievable. The cricket ground here is fantastic. The only thing I will say is the length of time it does take to get here is a pain in the backside from the British Isles, but when you get here it is definitely worth it. And Stuart Broad has just come down the stairs, side to side stretches to run, to have a bowl alongside his great mate who is actually bowling in the middle, well, not 4 strips away from the playing service at this minute in time. Jeetan Patel has got the mitt, stumps, yellow stumps either side of the practice wicket, and Broad and Anderson are standing there, braced each other, and they've embraced each other many times, over 1,000 times together. And a lot's been made over the last couple of days and celebrated about that achievement, and I don't think enough, to be honest. I don't think you can celebrate that achievement enough, because it is a ridiculous achievement. The longevity of these two guys is just amazing. I seen Stuart last night and congratulate him. Seen Jimmy this morning to congratulate him, and still look, when I look down and look at my torso, Manners, and the way my body's gone over the last few years, I look at them two and think, right, just keep playing, because you look at this, still look $1 million.
But I think one of the reasons that maybe not enough praise has been given to them is because it's an achievement so far beyond the ability for most of us to relate to. It's like saying, well done, we put a man on the moon. Well, we don't know what that requires, and it looks and sounds absolutely phenomenal. But I've spoken to enough professional cricketers, and I've got friends who are professional cricketers, and they tell me how hard it is to take one wicket at first class level. Do you know what I mean? You're running in 30 yards, it hurts. Every ball hurts, and they've done it 1,003 times together in test matches.
It's crazy, isn't it? 1,003 times together. Just the numbers themselves. Was it Jimmy 177 in test matches, Stuart 160 in test matches played. The other people in the other cricketers are on that list. There's a spinner in both the sort of next two, and that's in Matai Muralitharan and Shane Warne, along with Seema in Vass and Glenn McGrath, who also had a long, an illustrious career. But yeah, to try and take wickets, it is tough to try and bowl in Test match cricket. It is tough. It's hard work, and it does hurt. And for these guys to keep going, and we have to be realistic. They have been helped since 2015. No one-day internationals, no white ball cricket, so they've only been playing Test matches, and they do play a lot of first-class cricket to get themselves ready to play for England when the Test matches come around. But again, it's a phenomenal achievement. And I remember Norman Gifford, my first ever coach at Durham, whenever I was sitting with my pads on, manners, I'd have my helmet on, sitting waiting to go in. He'd slap me over the back of the head and he'd say, "Mr. Harmison, just remember how hard you have to work to get a wicket. Don't go giving yours away." And that was when I had bat in hand. And he was right. It is. You have to work so hard to get one wicket, never mind over 1,000. And the two champions are going to be on the winning side. I don't think there's any question about that. Daryl Mitchell has been a thorn in England's side for a long time. And the pitch does look good. It looks a belter apart from the little scar areas. Broad managed to get a few to nip back from last night. But I think if New Zealand do put a partnership together, I think one will bring two will bring three, and I think once you get into the bowlers, I think England will make easy work of what is hopefully going to be a winning day for the England cricket team.
Well, I just want to put this victory, if that's what it is, and we're all pretty confident that it will be, into context, because this will be the first victory in 3 tours in New Zealand for England. Their last win was in March 2008. Since then, this is the 3rd time they've come. They've played 7 Test matches, lost 2 and drawn 5. They've lost the last 2 series in New Zealand.
They have. It's been a tough place for them to come, and the last time they won, they had to drop 2 old men, and that was the reason why they won the Test match in Meeting Hogarth, to give 2 young men at the time, baby-faced, precious about their hairdos, the 2 of them. They got into the team along with somebody else who's precious about his hairdo. 3-man bowling attack of Broad, Anderson and Side Bottom, and they were the last bowling attack. Try to think along with it. Graham Swan would have been in that side. It might have been Monty Panesar. Graham Swan would have been the spinner. That would have been the bowling attack that took over from the first Test match, which was Hogarth, Harmison and Side Bottom. And from then, they've never, they've got the 2 wins, and they were the last 2 wins, and that was in 2008. At the start of Stuart Broad's career, Jimmy had played a little bit more, but at the start of Stuart Broad's career, possibly the last time Stuart Broad comes to New Zealand, they're going to get the next victory.
Right, Jack Leach is going to bowl the first over, and there's some time and precision involved in setting the field. They finally got it just as they wanted. There's a slip and a silly point and a catching cover. Here is Leach, tosses the first one up beautifully. Lovely arc on that, lands in exactly the right place. And the fielders are still swapping around now. Stuart Broad's gone to deepish cover point, as Leach is in once again, and it's a low full toss. That wasn't quite as planned, and it's driven down the ground, and Ben Duckett runs around from long off, dives at long on, just misses the dive, and the ball clatters into the boundary board. So Daryl Mitchell is off the mark. Boundary foam triangles. We're going to come up with a uniform name for these foam triangles. Toblerones they're called, but that's free advertising. Slip and a silly point as well for Daryl Mitchell as Leach is in. Forward comes Mitchell, pushes that one defensively straight back to the bowler.
Tough end for Jack Leach to bowl, because as we look to the right of the scoreboard, the wind, the flags are flying, in full flourish.
Leach tosses it up once again, and it's pushed by Mitchell. He's certainly trying to get Mitchell driving early on, isn't he? And that's sensible. I mean, Mitchell had a hit in the net. We saw him having a short net, but it's still the first proper over of the day, and mistakes can happen early on. Here's Leach again. Here comes Mitchell again, pushing it straight back to the bowler. There you go. Jerusalem, first over of the day, always played after the first ball each day's play, and beginning of each innings. Here is Leach once again. Forward comes Mitchell to the last ball of the over, pushes it out towards cover. It's fielded by Harry Brook, and there's no run. 24 overs gone in the innings. The target is 394. Daryl Mitchell actually is the 53rd New Zealander to score 1,000 Test runs, but the 5th fastest. And there'll be some familiar names. Some of these names might surprise you, actually. Jesse Ryder, 21 innings. Daryl Mitchell got there in 22 innings. Mark Richardson, I didn't know that he made such a flying start. You always associate him with being a very stoic blocker opening bat.
He got 190 at Lords, if I remember right, in 2004. Mark Richardson, who was working on the TV company out here, and he was difficult to get. I'm nearly sure he's 100 at Lords. I think I remember right, and I hit him everywhere on his body. He batted for about 350 balls for that 100. He batted beautifully. He got them to 100. He got to a decent score at Lords and prolonged that game. And if I remember right, he came in as a left-arm spin bowler, turned himself into a nuggety opening batsman. Very difficult to get out. Not difficult to bowl to, but difficult to get out because he knew where his off stump was. He left a lot, defended quite well.
Right, Michael Bracewell's on strike now. It's Jimmy Anderson, not surprisingly, to bowl the second over of the day from the Mount Maunganui end, and that's pushed away defensively out on the onside. And there's no run. 2 slips gully for Jimmy Anderson. I did enjoy him talking to Sam Allard before the start of play, saying that as much as he enjoyed watching Stuart Broad, he was a bit jealous.
Yeah.
And he bowled 3 overs.
He only bowled 3 overs, and then he's probably thinking, yes, I'm bowling 3 overs. If I'm only bowling 3 overs tonight, I'm bowling tomorrow when the lights aren't on.
Here's Anderson again. That's down the leg side. Rare loose delivery from Jimmy Anderson. A little push from Michael Bracewell. Doesn't make contact with it. It's taken by Ben Folkes. Smallest crowd of the match so far, which is not surprising given the likely duration of the day's play or the afternoon's play. But I think a few England supporters have maybe decided to go and do some sightseeing, spend the day on the beach. Here is Anderson again, and that's pushed out defensively on the onside. Actually, no, that's not true at all. The majority of England supporters are here, where the Barmy Army is sitting on the grass banks away to our left. That's pretty well populated there. Why on earth would you come this far and not want to be here to witness a victory? I think it's the New Zealand supporters who've decided to.
New Zealand supporters are on the beach, but when I came to pick you up, Manners, because you're staying in town, it was busy in town, and road was closed by the sort of beach area, so I think a lot of the locals are there.
Left alone outside the off stump, and there's no run. The other men on that list, the top 5 quickest to 1,000 runs for New Zealand. Former long-time captain John Reid, who was a match referee as well for a long time, a real legend of New Zealand cricket. He, like Mark Richardson, got to 1,000 runs in 20 innings, but the quickest was Devon Conway. Made 200, of course, on debut against England at Lords. He required just 19 innings. Anderson in once again, clipped away by Bracewell, out towards square leg, and fielded by the captain, Ben Stokes. New Zealand 67 for 5. Bracewell 25. Daryl Mitchell has 17.
You look at the averages of Conway and Mitchell, both already played under 15 Test matches, and Mitchell averages 58 and Conway averages 55.
Anderson again to Bracewell, the left-hander, pushes that defensively up towards mid-off, and there is no run. 67 for 5 New Zealand. There's a tweet that's just come into the TalkSport feed, TalkSport_cricket, and it's just been forwarded to me, and it says, to me, can you ask Harmy how he's feeling after the mighty Red Men beat his Newcastle?
Don't go there. Do you know what? I thought Newcastle started the game really well, until a minor lapse in the defence. Conceded a goal, then we had 10 minutes of madness where we looked all at sea. Liverpool got another goal, and obviously what happened to Nick Pope is heartbreaking for the big fella. best player in the Premier League for me over the course of the season so far.
Leach in again, short and wide cut, punched really off the back foot by Daryl Mitchell out towards Broad on the cover boundary. They go through for a single. I confess I didn't know Liverpool were known as the Mighty Red Men.
Mighty Red Men, Red Devils.
Yeah,
Red Devils.
that.
I thought that's
Manchester
United,
United,
isn't it? Manchester United, the Red Devils. Mighty Red Men, I'm not so sure, but
Anyway, Newcastle have lost fewer games in the Premier League than anybody else.
they have, but they've lost 2 games to in the Premier League this season, but only to one team. They've been beat by Liverpool twice now, and like I said, Big Nick Pope. It's heartbreaking for the guy. Done brilliantly for Newcastle this season.
Here's Leach to the left-handed Bracewell now. He won't mind the change of stance. Bracewell, he's got a man at short leg and a leg slip as well because he's turning it into the left-hander. So he misses the cup final. Dear me, I didn't realise that. Here is Leach again, and that's pushed defensively out towards Pope at short leg. Does the punishment exceed the crime in this
No, it
instance?
doesn't. The punishment doesn't. For me, I think it's too severe from a cup final point of view.
Here is Leach once again, and it's tipped into the air, and a simple catch straight to mid-wicket, leg side field. Leach turning it into the left-hander, and Harry Brook won't get too many more simpler catches than that. He's just trying to turn it onto the leg side, and he's got a leading edge, I think. It's popped up, and as I said, Harry Brook had so long there he could read the name Kookaburra on the side of that pink board as it landed gently into his hands.
Read it. I think he could spell it as well. It was so simple, straight up in the air. If you remember rightly, Manners, last night, the very first ball Michael Bracewell faced off Jack Leach, he did exactly the same thing, but he got a little bit more of an edge on it, and it looped over the top. I think it was Ben Duckett who was going back last night. He couldn't quite catch it, but it's a one where it's just sat in the pitch, and Michael Bracewell's just turned his hand a little bit too quickly, and it's just looped up in the air to mid-wicket, and an easy catch for Harry Brook, and a good bit of bowling from Jack Leach. I mentioned earlier in the first over, difficult end to bowl from because the wind is howling. Jimmy Anderson has got the wind literally right up his backside coming in, where when you're a spin bowler and you're trying to sort of get the right line and get the right length and get the right speed up against the wind, and a strong wind, it's sometimes very, very difficult. We've seen him overpitch that second ball to Daryl Mitchell, who he expertly put away for 4, not a problem. But Jack Leach has bowled so far, he's bowled some good balls, some good, dropped them on a good length, and fair play to him, because it's not that easy. People think bowling into the wind, from a spin bowler's point of view, you can use the wind. You can if it's a crosswind, but not when it's going straight up and straight up and down. So fair play to Jack Leach, just held that one back. Michael Bracewell just turned his hand just a little bit too quickly on it, and it just looped up in the air, and a simple catch.
Was indeed. Scott Kugelheim is the new batsman, and England have got a second slip in now to the right-hander, with Leach turning it away from the right-hander. It's Root and Crawley in the slips. Ollie Pope is at silly point under the helmet, and 3 on the offside, saving 1. There's a deep cow corner as well. Man on the boundary out there, deep mid-wicket. As Leach is in, Kugelheim pushes it firmly up towards mid-off. Stokes fields it via the deflection from Jack Leach's left hand off his own bowling. Target is 394. It's a distant prospect now for the home side. 68 for 6. Here is Leach. It's a beauty. That's a lovely delivery from Jack Leach. Had air, bit turned just enough to beat the outside edge. Ben Folkes takes it nicely and whips the bails off. And we're going to have a look for the stumping up.
Yeah, I think Alim Dalal is just politely, I think, he mustn't have been watching, thinking last ball of the over, seen the stumps go off, and I just make sure 2 batsmen got no concern whatsoever. So I think it'll be a polite review. Jared.
Hey guys, just the Women's World Cup updates. There were some games last night that were quite important. England had to beat the Indian women, and they did. Amy Jones, who was overlooked for the IPL, and I don't really understand it because they don't seem to have many wicket keepers in Indian cricket at the moment. But she decided to make her thoughts well known by making 40 off 27 and winning that game. And there's quite an interesting game being played later today. If this doesn't last that long, Manners, and you need some extra cricket later on today, New Zealand women versus Sri Lanka women, because at the moment it looks like Sri Lanka women might qualify for the semi-finals of the World Cup. And considering they didn't play for 2 years because their board forgot they existed, it's been quite a turnaround for Sri Lankan women. They've played a lot of good cricket so far in this tournament, and New Zealand women were bowled out for basically 0 in 2 games. I'll say that now before Frankie comes on.
Twice considerably under 100, wasn't it? So 67 and 70 odd. Anyway, we've had the review. Alim Dar wanted the third umpire, Rod Tucker, to have a look at potential stumping from Ben Folkes, and the back foot, not only the back foot was comfortably grounded, I think both feet were behind the line. So, yeah, that was a fairly straightforward decision for Rod Tucker to make. Here's Jimmy Anderson from the Mount Maunganui end. 2 slips in a narrow gully. Short pulled in the air out towards long leg. Jack Leach will field. Momentarily the ball was in the air and Jack Leach just braced himself and then realised that actually it wasn't going to get halfway towards him. 69 for 6. We always talk, don't we, Harmy? This is the last point on Newcastle now. But yeah, I mean, the point about sports administration is that you always want the punishment to fit the crime, and I haven't seen the incident, but I'm told reliably that there was no malice, no cynicism, and you know, the Newcastle goalkeeper handled the ball outside the area. You would know that if you're a Newcastle supporter, but if you don't, and he was sent off and will subsequently miss the cup final.
He misses the cup final. I would hope there was a rule where it would rather be a Premier League game he'd miss.
Anderson in to Scott Kugelheim, the back of a length, and turned out towards mid-wicket. Yeah, it does seem that in this instance that the punishment far exceeds the crime.
Yeah, we had in the same game. You've got a Brazilian player at Newcastle who's on 9 yellow cards. If he gets another yellow card, he misses the next game. But he misses the next game, which is a Premier League game, and it wasn't the cup final. So it was only going to be a straight red that missed the cup final, which. It is a huge shame for Nick Pope. I met him for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and what a really, really nice guy he is.
Anderson in once again to Kugelheim, and this time he goes forward to a length ball on off stump and pushes it straight back to the bowler.
I was invited in to Newcastle's sort of training ground and to talk about, alongside Alberto Solano, to talk about, nobody talked about playing in the FA Cup final, playing in endurance of Bobby Robson's era, and mine, he asked me to talk about the Ashes and winning the Ashes against Australia for the first time in a long time, and Newcastle haven't won a trophy for a while, and one of the first people that came over sort of sat with me for 20 minutes was Nick Pope.
Here's Anderson again, and Kugelheim opens the face of the bat and steers it away past backward point. There's a chase on for the captain Ben Stokes, who flicks it back to himself. That was brilliant. He was being accompanied back to the boundary by Ollie Pope, and I thought Stokes was going to flick it back to Pope to throw it in. Actually, as he turned to pick it up, he flicked it up into the air, turned around and took it himself.
Little circus trick, wasn't it? It was like a nice little circus trick. It's like when and the golfers will sort of keep it up and then mess about with it on the tee, waiting for the next shot to come. Ben's just nonchalantly flicked it up the back, turned a full circle and picked it up as though it was something you do every day.
Anderson in. Oh, that could be close. Up goes the finger. LBW. It just looked so out. Kugelheim stretching forward. It's nipped back from Jimmy Anderson. It's kept a bit low as well. I reckon that's hit him below the knee roll, and he's walked down the wicket to have a chat with Daryl Mitchell now, and they have reviewed it, although Daryl Mitchell's body language was more along the lines of, oh, go on then.
Now we've got 3, we might as well use them. We're 71 for 7. Dinner table's not booked till 7 o'clock, so we need to waste a little bit of time. This looked absolutely stone dead. You just go off Jimmy Anderson's reaction straight away, and he knew this is as out as it's ever going to come. I reckon in 1,003 wickets they've got so far between Broad and Anderson, this will be 1,004th. and I don't think they're getting a wicket so far between the two of them in that 1003, which is more out than this one. It's got to be stone dead. Yeah. Thank you very much. See you later. Off you go. That's hit. That's pitched just outside off stump. Gone on with the angle. It's hit him just on the sort of inside of off stump. Sorry, pitched inside of off stump, and the impact is hitting middle 3/4 of the way up. The stump camera at the top of middle stump will have a perfect view of this because the ball was cannoned straight into the middle of it.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't help looking at Daryl Mitchell's body language from the non-strikers end. Scott Kugelheim once the finger went up, he's taken the stroll down towards the non-strikers end, and initially Daryl Mitchell wasn't going to meet him. He was just standing there.
He wasn't going to meet him. I think Alim Dar's expression was interesting as well, as to say, you're going to make me do the referral with my hands here, because that is just stone dead. It's as dead as it comes. A fantastic bit of bowling by Jimmy Anderson. Just angle the ball back in, seeing perfect position. It's pitch just outside the line of off stump. Impact right on sort of the sort of inside of off stump. And the impact was hitting middle 3/4 of the way up. That's as good as it come from Jimmy Anderson.
Indeed, 3 slips and a gully wait now as Tim Southey, the captain, comes to the crease at number 9. The 12th and 13th, 14th men, as usual, in every break in play, with their high-vis yellow vests on, have rushed onto the field to give guys a drink. They haven't been on the field for 20 minutes yet, but they have a drink anyway. Come this way, you can drink. Here is Anderson, bowls. Edge! Taken a first slip! Jimmy Anderson's on a hat-trick. Southey's gone first ball. Joe Root takes the catch. Low down at first slip. Good grab that. New Zealand 71 for 8.
Jimmy Anderson saying to Stuart Broad, anything you can do, I can do it in the daylight. You do it in the dark, I'll do it in the daylight. That's a beauty. Ball just nipped away on a good length. Tim Southey playing away from his body. A low catch from Joe Root. Excellent catch from the former England captain. Low down to the ground. Tim Southey has to go. First ball for naught. New Zealand are 71 for 8. And a long, long way back from the England target. Brilliant from Jimmy Anderson. Ball before nips back onto middle stump. The next ball a little bit shorter, nips away. And Tim Southey just reaches for it, just fishes for it, and manages to get a thick enough edge to take it to first slip. And Joe Root did the rest. He ain't going to drop them, was the former England captain.
Oh, Harley, we've taken 3 wickets in the first 20 minutes on air. I was looking forward to having a celebratory beer with you to enjoy England's victory, but it might be a bit early.
No, it's Manners, I've worked on the breakfast show with Alan Brazil for a number of years now. Early's not even in the question.
71 for 8, New Zealand.
What is early?
Well, yes, those of you who've worked in the world of breakfast shows may have a different perspective on that. Now, Jack Leach is about to bowl the third over of the fifth over of the day. Well, Jimmy Anderson will be. He hasn't taken a Test hat-trick, and Stuart Broad reminds him of that fact on a number of occasions, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got a one-day hat-trick. I was there for that. I wasn't playing in the game in Cape Town, in your home, in your native land and home city. It was a brilliant bit of bowling in Cape Town. To think it was 20 years ago, man. 20 years ago was his one-day hat-trick. Can you imagine if he first ball the next over gets a wicket?
Neil Wagner's the new batsman. He's at the non-strikers end. Here's Jack Leach bowling to Daryl Mitchell. A little bit of width outside the off stump, and that is chopped away out to Stuart Broad, sweeping on the cover boundary. And I am so pleased that New Zealand aren't turning down singles here. Daryl Mitchell is attempting to protect the number 10 with 180 overs left in the Test match.
I think Jimmy Anderson will be hoping to get at least one more single in this over, so he can bowl the first ball the next over to Neil Wagner. It's been a great display of bowling by England. It really has. Last night, you've got to have the conditions. Yes, I get that, and they had the conditions, but you've got to be good enough to exploit them. And I wouldn't say the difference between this Test match has been the bowling attacks. It hasn't, because England's batting has been ridiculous at times.
Here's Jack Leach, 3 men around the bat as Neil Wagner plays defensively, pushes it straight back to the bowler, no run.
But England's ability to put pressure on the New Zealand bowling attack, and they just weren't up to it. England's bowling attack have been as good as their bat, and it's been fantastic.
Leach again to Wagner, and tucked away behind square on the leg side. Stuart Broad does the fielding again. So he's everywhere. Man at cow corner, I think that's sensible. Neil Wagner doesn't mind a slog sweep from time to time. In fact, he enjoys a slog sweep, so that makes a lot of sense. 3 men catching around the bat. Leach, and again forward comes Wagner, pushes it up towards Harry Brook at mid-wicket, and there's no run. So the men on the offside, a slip, Jimmy Anderson at cover, and Ollie Robinson at a deepish mid-off, and in fact Harry Brook is now coming in from orthodox mid-wicket to a catching mid-on, short mid-on, as Leach is in once again. Down the wicket comes Wagner, using his feet and then defending, and it is fielded by Harry Brook. Ben Duckett is at deep mid-wicket, the captain Ben Stokes is at mid-on. Oh well, he's changing the field now. He's decided to Ben Stokes has put himself at mid-wicket, but not at deep mid-wicket.
No, and Joe Root's come from slip to speak to Ben Stokes. I just wonder if he's telling them, should we give him a single to get Neil Wagner on strike for Jimmy Anderson? And I just wonder if that's what the former England captain is saying to the current England captain. But Ben's not having any of it. He's wanting Jack Leach to take the wicket himself.
Leach up to the crease now, bowls, and worked away defensively off the back foot, straight back to the bowler, and overdone. Daniel McHardy's going to take over, and he's going to have the pleasure and privilege of describing Jimmy Anderson's hat-trick ball after a word from Jared Kimber.
Just a new trend. It's absolutely nothing to do with the hat-tricks, but just a new trend we've noticed. A few minutes ago you saw England review a ball for a stumping when Leach was up at the stumps. You're seeing a lot of teams doing this now, reviewing for stumpings where there doesn't seem like the batter has moved their foot at all. And the reason they're doing it, of course, is to get a sneaky free review out of the DRS system, because they have to also look at all the forms of dismissal. And if you watch the Australia-India series, you see it's been happening a lot. Teams have been asking for a lot of stumpings when no one seems to be moving an inch out of their crease or even raising their foot. But it gets them a free review.
Thank you very much, Jared. Extraordinary start today. Number 4, Jimmy Anderson on the hunt for a Test match hat-trick. That shelf is empty in this extraordinary career.
It is.
4 slips, a gully on the leg side, leg slip, man short cover, short mid-on, he bowls to Mitchell, nipping it back in on leg stump, he defends to the onside. And Jimmy Anderson can get grumpy from time to time. I think he's grumpy now as he looks away, almost kicks the turf, a bit frustrated with himself.
He is. Stuart Broad's got his hands on his hip as to say, come on, Jimmy. Come on, Jimmy. A lot's been mentioned, Dan, about the last time England won over here, which was in 2008. And there was a hat-trick on that trip. If I remember right, it was Ryan Sidebottom took a hat-trick on that trip in England's winning series, the last winning series over here, all them years ago.
Anderson passed up by Adara again, Fuller of length, skirting off the outside edge, going towards fourth or fifth slip where Pope is positioned. There is no run. England running through New Zealand to start day number 4. Bracewell the first to go. Caught Brook bowled Leach tamely chipping one on the onside. Really does have a problem defending spinners. A number of instances, even in this 25 run stay, where he threatened just nudging one tamely to leg slip, or the man under the helmet gone for 25. Then Kugelheim for 2 and Southey both dismissed by Anderson, who bowls again full to Mitchell, pushing up towards mid-on, and there is no run. Kugelheim making 2. Southey without scoring. 72 for the loss of 8 on a road.
Yeah, it's a road, but there's, I've talked about in the build-up to today's play, there's still some of them indentations, there's still some of them sort of scarring areas, which if it does hit that, it's doing a bit. Stuart Broad managed to hit a few last night. I think the one of Tim Southey just hit that and it's bounced and nipped away.
Here goes Anderson again, wider of off stump, but shorter of length, and that gives plenty of time for Mitchell to get across, nudge it forward of point, getting a run. taking the score to 73 for the loss of 8. I think you've been quite generous to the New Zealand batsmen too, though.
No, I just think there are some areas. You watched last night, Stuart Broad was magnificent last night. He was unbelievable. And I think you look at, especially at, I think the one thing I will say about it is we've been doing this job, and I've played in the game for a long period of time. How many of international top sixes get bowled? You wouldn't say too many. I won a Test match, a little bit of misfortune. There was 4 last night, and I think that's largely down to the bowler.
Wagner trying to drive a half volley, misses, almost played over the top of the ball, well wide of off stump and through to folks behind the wicket. No doubt about it, absolutely not. The bowling was first rate. First rate, and it needs to be acknowledged.
But it nipped back. That's the thing that was the bowler. The bowler's skill level was ridiculous last night. But he had some assistance off the surface. The ball was hitting these areas, and it was nipping back. The one that got, he mentioned in an interview, Kane Williamson, was...
Anderson again, wider of the crease and driving on the up through extra cover and getting some runs will be Wagner. He's off the mark. It's taken him 7 balls to do so. Goes out towards the extra cover boundary. Broad fields. And they come back for 2. Wagner to 2, 75 for 8. That's the end of the over. 41 overs New Zealand's had to bat in the final session of this Test match on day number 1. Day number 3, Harmy, 100 runs they've scored for the loss of 8. You compare that to the 16 overs England had to face on day number 2, 79 for 2.
I had a brief chat with Joe Root this morning on the ground, and he said that exact thing. It's not about these day-night games, but he's still trying to work them out. And when you look at it, it's not about the pitch deteriorating, it's about the tactics of getting to the time where you need, if you can, give yourself the best chance to take wickets. And them numbers that you've just mentioned illustrate that point. It's not about trying to get into the 4th or 5th day and get the pitch to go up and down. It's about, can you get the ball in your hand under lights?
From the City end, Leach continuing from around the wicket, bowling to Mitchell, who defends on off stump back to the bowler, and there's no run. But the counterpoint to very good bowling, it is Test match cricket. You're going to come across some very good bowling, and Robertson, Broad, Anderson, they're a pretty decent trio. You've got to be prepared here as Leach going wider of off stump, played into the cover region. So how do you counteract it? Yet it's likely to do more so under lights. How do you know this in the second innings? Well, you've seen it in the first. I thought England's been on the front foot throughout this game, figuratively and literally. Off stump once more, push back to Leach. They've taken a stride or 2 down to sort of take the ball that they don't want to see, which is the ball nipping around about off stump height. I think New Zealand have been a little bit tentative on that, prone on the crease. Here is Mitchell. He comes forward, defends. One player who's tried it in the second innings is Mitchell.
Yeah.
And what did England do? Folkes stands up. Which would he be comfortable with that, Folkes?
Yeah, he's a great government. Yeah, but I think he'll do whatever it needs to at the time, and he's good enough to stand up to the seamer.
Brave, the guy at 4 for 10. But it pushed Mitchell into a bit of a shell. He was then in survival mode. So I think the forthright nature of the way England have played really has to be commended. Pushed through mid-on by Mitchell. He will get a run on this occasion.
But I think the point, I get the point you're making, but I also look at how New Zealand bowled, and I thought first innings they were
didn't
a shambles.
do that. They were
a shambles. I thought second innings England knocked them off their length. So that's what you're trying to say is
yes,
a batsman coming out and being proactive to knock them off their length. I get that, and I spoke to a colleague, somebody I played with for 20 odd years after day 1, and he was trying to say on day 1 that England knocked them off their length. That's no chance. They just bowled badly, where England have not done that. England have nowhere near done that. That's why their experienced attack has got England in the position that they're in.
Leach over the wicket to the left-hander. Wagner pushing up towards mid-off. That is the end of the Leach over. It's 5 overs, 1 for 12, removing Bracewell, the first wicket to fall today. 76 for the loss of 8, chasing 394.
And the biggest example I will say to that is that when you talk like older bowlers, I'll say to the youngsters, the stumps don't move. And the top of off stump is a good ball to anybody in whatever cricket you play, whether you're playing 20-20 cricket, and it's up to the batsman to come at that ball that comes in and around off stump. And you counteract that by being positive. You try and be positive. England have done that. But as a bowler, I'd say if somebody's coming at me, the if I keep bowling in and around that off stump, he's taking risks to knock me off my length. I'm going to eventually win. So because of that, that's fine. And what Stuart Broad did last night meant New Zealand not allowed to.
Anderson starts from wide of the crease over the wicket, full, and worked into the mid-wicket region. It was great to get the insights of Harmer. He's going to scoot on out. And from a rampant fast bowler to a rampant spinning all-rounder, Frankie Mackay will join me, Daniel McCarty, in commentary. You are listening to TalkSport 2 on DAB radio, online for talksport.com on your smart speaker or by downloading the TalkSport app. 77 for the loss of 8. Mitchell's 23, Wagner on 2. He's on strike and he gets a bouncer. He tries to hook. Problem is, the ball's ballooned well over his shoulder and the bat before it swung through. And there is no run because it's through to folks. 2 men back for that exact shot. Leach, who's hugging the boundary rope. Barrett can't quite pick up as he's signing autographs. Maybe Duckett. And a leg slip as well. 3 slips. Lydia catches. Anderson bowls full up. Looking to target that off stump Steve Harmison and I have just been discussing. Push to the offside. No run. Hello, Frankie.
Good afternoon, if I can call it that. Thought last night was grim. Well, start of the first session, if anything, it's been worse because the blue sky's out. There's no excuse for that. But England just once again, excellent ball in hand. And so far, just New Zealand, no answer for it.
I think the mode of the Bracewell dismissal was quite frustrating from a New Zealand's perspective. And then Anderson's just too good for bowlers. The other two, Kugelheim and Southey, not in this team to score runs, essentially. Here is Wagner facing up and driving Anderson to the onside of the wicket, bowling around the wicket. He's got it in between Anderson and Robinson, mid-on, and will get 2 runs as he comes back. So he's looking to be assertive, looking to get down and play his strokes, 79 for 8. And he's trying to hit that more offside, but true enough display of that face of the bat.
It's never a bad place to miss to, though, is it? Mid-on. Straight mid-on, seldom protected.
Anderson once more, 2 for 12 into his 7th over. Holds a bouncer, slippery 1-2, and underneath goes Wagner. Does well to get out of the way. The end of the Anderson over. He's bowled 4 today. No, 1 to go. My apologies, 1 to go. 4 to start today. There's 3 last night. Had to ride in the back seat, didn't he? Broad was driving the bus furiously downhill last night.
He was just along for the ride. That's for sure, Anderson. Now he's got the toil up top today.
Now 3 back on the onside, but Anderson goes fuller and almost got it between bat and pad as Wagner was quite a way through that drive attempt, inside edge into his front pad. The end of the over. New Zealand, as we welcome in our Talk Sport listeners. Our coverage here on TalkSport 2 of the first test of England's tour to New Zealand, where it's all the visitors. They have picked up 3 wickets here on day number 4, and New Zealand a sorry looking scorecard, 79 for the loss of 8. Bracewell the first to go, caught. Brook bowled Leach for 25 at mid-wicket, just trying to turn it on the onside, the left-hander. It just ballooned up, rather friendly, fired Brook's way. Kugelheim was adjudged LBW and rightly so, hit bang in front, would have hit the top of the bowling of Anderson, and Tim Southey, the New Zealand captain, then was caught by Roots behind the wicket. Very next ball. Anderson unable to take his hat-trick. He sits with 2 for 12, Broad 4 for 21, Robinson 1 for 34, hasn't bowled today. Leach, the other wicket taker, 1 for 12. New Zealand still 315 runs away from victory. There's your update. The state of play for those joining us on TalkSport. Here is Leach, very wide of the crease as he starts outside of off stump from around the wicket. No run to Mitchell. How's Mitchell going to play this now? He's running out of friends.
Nice boys. That's actually the interesting question now for Mitchell.
Only a gap available on the onside, deep. He is respectful enough to defend straight back to the bowler on off stump.
I think he'll still be prepared to let Neil Wagner face deliveries. I don't think he'll be turning down singles to try and hide Wagner from the strike.
Bends at the knee, open stance, Mitchell. Goes back, leaves alone through to Folks.
But he's a pretty determined character. He's a pretty dogged fellow. He's not just going to come out here and say, oh, we're 8 down. I'm just going to swing the willow now and see how it goes.
Leach continuing around the wicket. Very well for lighter tone to induce some form of a stroke. It's just a push to Robinson at extra cover.
And also you have to remember, he missed out first innings. Now, Daryl Mitchell does not like to miss out, especially against this English side. He's got a fine record against them, so I'd expect him to hang in.
79 for 8. Quicker through the air, wider of off stump, leaning forward once more, just push gently into the covers.
And I guess when you do start to cast an eye towards the next test in Wellington, any time in the middle is good time in the middle for a batter.
Glorious day. Bright sunshine. Well bowled by Leach. Just held that one back. Looking to angle towards that off stump. Not a lot of turn for him from around the wicket of the right-handers as Mitchell defends. There is no run. Leach 1 for 12 off 6 overs. 79 for 8.
So I would expect him to just bat like what we're seeing. Very respectful of the good delivery. Trying to be proactive in his foot movement. Getting well out of the crease to defend. Creating depth in the crease if it's the shorter ball. I just expect him to fight hard. It may change ever so slightly if and when New Zealand become 9 down, but I believe he'll just be saying to Neil Wagner as well, let's just hang in, see how long we can fight for, try and put some miles into these English bowlers' legs, make them run around in the hot sun for as long as we can, and let's see if we can get them to frustration point. That's probably the first job of the day, is to just irk some English bowlers.
Here is Anderson. He will continue from the Mount Maunganui end from around the wicket past umpire. Dar, and a nasty short ball that might have hit the front shoulder and ballooned up towards the grill as Wagner sort of just ducked his head to the right. Lost sight of the ball. Very accurate stuff from Anderson. Yeah, glove into sort of the chin, was it? Clavicle? I was not much good at.
Yeah, into the chest, into the collarbone. Not much fun, that's for sure.
Didn't hit the helmet, so that's why no concussion test. And Anderson was another sharp bouncer. He plays this one better, Wagner, in the sense he's kept his eye on it for much longer before he goes down underneath.
There's been a little bit of up and down bounce, especially with the shorter deliveries. Been a few people clobbered on the helmet throughout the test. Just the ball's not quite getting up as much as they expected.
Well, that's what you tend to see here, and again, for listeners back in the UK, small sample size as far as test cricket at this venue, just the 4th test, but here is Anderson, fuller this time on off stump from around the wicket, pushed into the cover region, no run, but we have seen, this is the first day night test as well, but generally you get great weather in this part of the country. Pitch tends to be flat, it tends to be toil for the bowlers, and the natural variation tends to be the bounce, and spin comes into play here more on day 4 and 5 than you would see in a lot of other venues around New Zealand, more so than we'll see at the Basin Reserve. It might have turned once in the 80s last time I saw. Here is Anderson bowling short into the ribcage of Wagner, confidently placed to point, no run.
Well, the logic at Wellington is if it seams it'll spin, but spinners just can't get the ball out of the seamer's hands. They're doing all the damage, so even if there is a little bit there, they never get a crack. They never get to have a wee roll at the bowler's crease, especially not days 1 through 3.
Yeah. England will be well prepared, though, for that aspect with Jeetan Patel, spin bowling coach, and, of course, long-time Wellington player. Back over the wicket to the left-hander as Anderson. He gets whipped outside of off-stump, does Wagner. It was short of length, and he's played that very well, hitting at top of the bounce, slicing it back with a point down to the unprotected rope for 4. 83 for the loss of 8 as Wagner moves to 8.
That's good signs for me as well. It's the fact that he's prepared to get up on his toes, arch the back to create a little bit more width outside that off-stump to free the arms up. Shows there's still that attacking mindset, and I think for players like Neil Wagner, even like a Daryl Mitchell, you have to still have that intent to score when it's provided to you, because that's what will allow them to get into good positions when they need to leave and defend.
Anderson gets one past the inside edge into the pads, or in fact might have been inside edge into pad. That's why more of a stifled appeal and keep with a second sound. A good over nonetheless from Jimmy Anderson. Good end to the over, I should say. 83 for the loss of 8. Just 4 runs off it. The previous ball hit away by Wagner. Anderson 2 for 16. Leach continuing. It's a good attendance, probably a little bit down on the New Zealand kind. They probably haven't decided to jump on him, but the number of English fans here still in very good numbers. It's just a wonderful day. In fact, it's probably good for the fans that this game might be over sooner rather than later. This is a frying day, isn't it, Frankie? There's little cloud. Mitchell comes down the wicket and hits high over long on. He loves hitting straight against the spinners. Little pace down, got to the pitch. Dragged it somewhat, but he's a strong man. His first 6, 89 for the loss of 8.
That's just power, that is. He hasn't got all of it. Inside half of the bat. He's just had to muscle it at the last second, not quite getting to the pitch of it, but power gets him out of trouble.
Field stays up, no adjustment. Credit Leach, he actually goes with more loop, just a fraction wider of off stump, defending his Mitchell. So a backward point, and on square just in front of point. Extra, covers creeping in an extra cover mid-off, mid-on, mid-wicket, man on the 45. So it's really, go on Daryl Mitchell, have a go if you want. This is Fuller, almost a Yorker from Leach, push back to the bowler. And let's not forget there is a man at slip. Really are enticing Mitchell. Fair enough, 305 away. They can give away a few boundaries. But here we go. Here's the first change of the field. Stokes has gone from mid-off to just behind the non-striker on the onside. The straightest of long ons. This one's on off stump, once more pushed into cover region. I've seen fields like this. Generally, someone's bowling fast, short, or an underage cricket at the other end of the field called a backstop. Leach, that is well bowled. Great length, bouncing high, challenging the top of the bat. Bit of spin away from the right-hander as he defends Mitchell.
I actually love the position, the straight hit.
He's about 2 metres off the rope as Stokes, as Leach again well flighted on off stump, but Mitchell doesn't take the bait. He pushes back to Leach. The end of the over 34 gone in the New Zealand innings. 89 for the loss of 8. They've lost Bracewell, Cougarline and Southey for 25-2. No score respectively this morning or this afternoon. More from Frankie Mackay and then John Norman.
Yeah, that straight hit position, actually something you're starting to see a lot more in women's short form cricket. Because they can only have 4 fielders out on the boundary, it's almost a gamble between the two. So you're trying to cover as much space as you possibly can. So it's an interesting one. Not sure it's maybe needed when you've got a lead of 305. Got your spinner toiling away. But Ben Stokes felt it was necessary, felt it could have brought about a wicket, or maybe it's just there to put a little bit of doubt in Daryl Mitchell's mind.
So 89 for 8, New Zealand, 63 for 5 at the start of the day. Jimmy Anderson, who took 2 wickets and 2 balls. This is dropped down to the outside, offside, and Wagner gets off strike. Mitchell comes through. He's 29, Wagner is 9 not out. And it does seem like England have put themselves in for maybe nine holes of golf later on today. I mean, there's still plenty of light. I mean, from your perspective, Frankie, looking at this England side that's travelled here and one that hasn't tasted success since 2008, when you factor in that arguably England's best bat, Johnny Bairstow, isn't here, and certainly England's 2 fastest bowlers, Mark Wood and Jofra Archer. I mean, how do you see this side? I mean, they're a young team as well. Anderson is in past the umpire, thick outside edge. It bounces just short of seconds. No, third slip. Harry Brook there fielding, getting down smartly to his right.
Well, they're a good side. There's no denying that, that's for sure. My big intrigue over the next little while is, where does Johnny Bairstow fit back in? Who does he come back in for? Where does he fit in the lineup? That's a great question to have when you're in that position as a side, when you're questioning how you fit a man, Johnny Bairstow's quality, back in.
Anderson again, touch fuller and pushed square of the wicket on the offside for another single. Mitchell is 30, Wagner is 9. Well, we've been having your silent shout-outs throughout the 4 days of this test match. And it's great that so many people have been getting in contact with us. We'll have a couple more of those before the match plays out. I think that essentially, and it's never wise to second-guess this England team these days, Anderson, this is shorter and played relatively deftly, actually, with a horizontal bat into the turf. Stokes fields at backward point, no run. Essentially, from the outside looking in, you'd have to say it's almost guaranteed that Bairstow will play. But then similar viewpoints have been held about, say, Jack Leach's position within the side. And others, Zach Crawley as well. Anderson is in, edged and caught smartly to his left. Ben Folkes takes this grab two-handed. Wagner's innings comes to an end, and Anderson strikes again here at the Mount, where the mountain for New Zealand has just got 1 wicket taller, and England now 1 wicket away from a handsome victory. New Zealand 91 for 9.
Just ran out of patience, did Neil Wagner. I think he was deceived slightly with the length. It was the line that drew him in. He saw it wide of the off stump and thought that was an opportunity to cash in, to be able to flash hard, the hands through the ball. But it was length once again that did it. Meant he was driving on the up, couldn't get close to it, couldn't cover the movement, and all that he ended up doing was finding the outside edge. Smart catch taken though by Folkes. But Wagner goes with just 9 next to his name, and now it's last rites for New Zealand, 91 for 9. Blair Tickner, can he come out and fight hard like he did in that first innings?
He did fight hard. That 10th wicket partnership, we felt, may have actually changed the course of the game. It didn't end up that way. But Tickner with a point to prove as well. There is, selection decisions to be made ahead of that second test match. I think he's done enough with the ball, to be honest, to make it to the second test. With, common perception is that Matt Henry will come into the side.
Yeah, I think Matt Henry will. I think he offers the ability to swing the ball perhaps a little bit more with a newer ball, but also he is just a seam bowler, and we've seen throughout this test the bowlers that have had success are the bowlers who've just been consistent. And think of Jimmy Anderson this morning, Stuart Broad last night, Ollie Robertson in the first innings. It's just their ability to just smash away at a length, get the ball moving off the seam, a little bit in the air when conditions have suited, but it's been that late movement off the surface and just the ability to just keep hammering away at length, about that 6 metre length, bringing the top of the stumps into play and just living in and around there. A noticeable thing for me has been the amount of deliveries that New Zealand have been forced to play at just because of that consistency that England have showed. So when you see how successful that's been, that almost lays a little bit of the blueprint leading into second test in Wellington. Yes, it's a day test, but it should be a little bit of a green mamba is probably what we'd call it. They'll have a bit of spice about it early on. So Matt Henry does, for me, he does come back in, and the question will be, does he come back in for a Blair Tickner, or is it Scott Kugelheim that gives way?
Certainly England targeted the stumps far more than New Zealand did in this test match, didn't they? As Anderson is in again. Can he wrap things up? Tickner defends, no foot movement, but hangs about out there really, defends. 91 for 9 then at the end of over number 35. 3 for 18 for Jimmy Anderson. He was speaking with Sam Ellard at the start of play, saying he almost felt envious of Stuart Broad yesterday, the way that Broad can conjure up those spells. Anderson self-effacing really, saying he doesn't take his wickets as quickly as Broad. Well, he's taken them pretty quickly today. Stuart Broad would have gone to sleep last night, 5 wickets on offer, thinking there's a fiver for me there tomorrow. But, you know, this is the Ben Stokes team, and this is the McCullum team, and this is what I was saying a little bit earlier. You would have expected he would have been thrown the ball early on, you know, to try and take that 5th wicket, but it's not about individual statistics within this England side, is it?
I did just see as the ball was getting passed around the circle to get back to now bowler Jack Leach. He did bowl it on, just to show perhaps that he's warm and ready to go if that is so needed.
What little hints did you give your skipper that you were ready to have a little bowl?
I was very subtle about it. I'd just go up and ask. Just
Jack Leach is going to continue. This is a little tempter to Daryl Mitchell. There's a big expanse to the offside. The field is spread. There's 3 fielders on the boundary. Jack Leach has just hung one out there, and he said to Mitchell, there's your single, get off strike. And for the first time today, Mitchell's decided not to.
Yeah, and so with that, England have seen the way that Daryl Mitchell's going to play, and they've just brought everyone except for Ben Stokes in that straight hit position up inside, well inside, just trying to put some pressure on. So if there is a loose shot, there are men able to catch it. Silly mid-off in place and a first slip.
Stokes is back at long on. We've seen Mitchell go straight down the track. He's playing straight down the track, but back to the bowler, Leach. Slight surprise that Stokes is there. Leach is in again. This is straighter. Opens the face slightly, does Mitchell. Plays down into the ground, fielded at backward point, no run.
I'm intrigued by that. I think it would be a bizarre dismissal to see Mitchell run down the wicket and get caught long on for the 10th wicket.
Down the track, defending, Mitchell. 30 not out. I mean, you work incredibly hard to get to this stage where you can play Test cricket, you can represent your country, and even in this losing cause, Daryl Mitchell does not look like a man who's going to give anything away. Down again, and was a forward short point, just for a second, flung his arms out to his right. He's going to go short straight mid on. One slip in place. Leach, one ball left of his 8th over. Again draws a defensive shot from Mitchell, and that means that Blair Tickner will face the first ball of the next over, with England needing 1 more wicket to win here on TalkSport 2. We have had some silent shout-outs. We're going to bring these over to Wellington. They've gone down really well. It's great that so many people are staying up late in the night, all waking up early to listen to us. John Duke says, thanks to the excellent commentary the last 4 days, keep up the good work. Well, pleased to say that Frankie Mackay will be joining us at the Basin. It's one of the most atmospheric crowd. It's probably the most atmospheric crowd, actually, isn't it? Bags of history, synonymous with some of New Zealand's finest. And it's a magical place to watch Test cricket. It's a magical place to watch cricket. Must be pretty special to play there as well.
Yeah, it sure is. It is a wonderful place to play cricket. It's always such a good surface as well. So it's a ground that everyone looks forward to playing at. As a batter, you're in for a little bit of tough work to start your innings off. The ball definitely nips about, but once you get through that, you really can make hay. You think back to Brendan McCullum scoring 300 there. But then the bowlers as well, they're encouraged. It's a ground they love turning up to. Not all of them, the ones that have to truck into the wind, they generally don't have so much appreciation for the ground, but it is a wonderful place to play cricket, but also a great place to sit and watch cricket. Again, out on the banks, able to put your feet up. Just a quintessential New Zealand ground.
Stuart Broad with a chance to wrap things up here at the Bay Oval. Short delivery, and Blair Tickner sways out of the way. 4 slips now in place. This is the kind of field that we were seeing last night, wasn't it? And also at the end of day 1. Barmy Army just to the left of us here in our commentary position in the Tauranga end. Still a healthy crowd when you could consider it's never going to last too long today. Broad again. Identical delivery from the first one, and Tickner again. No interest whatsoever. I always think of Ian O'Brien when it comes to bowling into that wind. He used to write a blog. He's kind of ahead of his time, actually. He went to social media a long time ago, maybe 13 years ago. He used to write a blog, and he used to try and get down on paper, electronically, what it was like, you know, to essentially bowl fast. Broad again. He's got this one wrong, actually. It's short again, but it's very, very wide, halfway down the track. Tickner has a little look around. It's not gone the way he would have hoped when his debut started, but he's got into his game, hasn't he? It's a good little innings at the end of the first innings, and he's bowled better as the game has progressed. Right arm over the wicket as Broad is in again, and it's edged just to the right of Ben Duckett at fourth slip. Tickner will get off the mark with a streaky 4. New Zealand edging towards 100. That's pretty much as good as it gets. 95 for 9 here at New Zealand on TalkSport 2.
Well, under 300 to win as well. Note that you left that out. Can't understand why, but
yeah, it's just dipped under 300. The target was 394. Now it's 299. Well, they always say that, you know, mentally that's, you know, it's a big moment, isn't it? What's Broad got here? Again, he's in, and this is played uncomfortably really by Tickner. Has a little look at his bat. Ball pops out in front of him. Is fielded by Anderson, I think it is, at mid-off. Stuart Broad. This is the thing, when there's only one wicket to go, he's going to know there's another over. This could be wrapped up. The glory moment. It's set so close. Tail ender at the crease as well. Good crowd here at the Bay Oval. Stuart Broad with ball in hand. In, and that's a nice looking shot from Tickner. Again, no real foot movement. It's pitched up, it's driven, and there's just enough on it to reach the boundary. Wideish long off as well. So, 2 boundaries from the over. Tickner moves to 8, and New Zealand 1 away from 100. 99 for 9 here on TalkSport 2. I think Frankie Mackay might be making way. I'm not 100% sure.
Indeed.
Yes,
it's me. Hopefully, it means I get to come back and have a chat again a little bit later on.
Well, could you imagine?
It's good signs. Might be coming back when there's 199 needed.
Wow. If Tickner raises his bat, we know that Frankie Mackay will be back. Either way, it's absolutely a delight to have you with us on TalkSport 2. We'll see you at the Basin Reserve. Mike Atherton joins us. I wasn't sure we were going to hear from you. And Jimmy Anderson took 2 wickets and 2 balls.
No, I thought the same. I didn't think I'd get on, but I snuck on for the final wicket. Look a bit demoralised this morning, New Zealand, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They do indeed. Jack Leach has picked up 1 of the wickets to 4 this morning. That of Michael Bracewell. He's back in again. This is wide of Daryl Mitchell, who has shown one thing, and that is that he's not going to give this one away. He's played defensively against the spinner. He did launch him for 1. Nicely taken straight to 6, but apart down the track, this is, and he's going to do it again. This time over long off. That's a clean swing of the bat. Confident foot movement. Economy of movement, and 6 more runs, 36, and New Zealand go past 100 as well. 105 for now.
Well, we saw this on numerous occasions last summer, actually, when Daryl Mitchell played so well in that 3 Test match series. He is a fantastic hitter of the ball down the ground off the spinner.
What's Leach going to do now? He's straighter, and Mitchell is playing back defensively, no run.
And I think even when your team is going down, which Mitchell's team is here, you've still got pride in your own personal performance, and you can just say to yourself, well, they're not going to get me out. even if they get the rest out.
Absolutely, as Mitchell again was sent back by Tickner, fielded by Broad at point. I mean, his dad was a professional sports person, wasn't he? And I suppose it just bleeds through there. It's kind of over
Yeah, was he an All Black? Did he?
He wasn't an All Black.
No, but he did play for New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Yes.
Not sure exactly how that works, but down on the sweep, but is Mitchell. And that's nicely done. He has to reach quite far to drag the ball round. It means that Tickner's going to face his first delivery of spin. One ball left of the over.
I was chatting to Daryl Mitchell this morning. Actually, he's going to Lancashire next summer, and he was saying that he remembers it a little bit from his childhood because his dad John coached at Sale for a short period of time, and I think that's where he's going to live when he goes to Old Trafford next summer. So he had a childhood following his dad around, really, on his various coaching assignments. Perth, he spent quite a lot of time, bit of time in the UK. His dad, not only a rugby player, but a highly respected coach as well.
Yeah, part of Eddie Jones' setup in the England camp. 5 fielders around the bat. Tickner defends though, and Stuart Broad will have another 6 deliveries to take his 5th wicket of the innings. And that will also be Drinks. Frankie Mackay was just asking the question, how do England fit Johnny Bairstow into this side? And it seems more likely than not that they should do, but it would be, you could almost imagine them not doing so. If it's a winning team, if it's a settled team, I wouldn't say that they're contrary, but there was a lot of clamour for Crawley to depart the side, and they resolutely defended him, didn't do that.
Well, there are 2 aspects to that. One is, will Bairstow be fit? It was a very bad injury, and I know he's on the road to recovery, and he started to run, I think, now on the treadmill, or what they call a kind of gravity controlled treadmill, whatever that is. But he started his rehab, but it was such a bad injury and he's been out for such a long time, it's not guaranteed that he's going to get back in time. So that's the first thing. And then second, if he does get back and gets into form, what do they do? And that is a nightmarish prospect for a selector. I guess there are 2 or 3 options. Either they don't pick him. If they do, where do they fit him in? You would think there's a potential perhaps at the top of the order because Crawley has been shorter runs. There is a potential to go as a wicket keeper, although Folkes is doing okay, and it's a long time now since Bairstow has kept wicket. You can't see him displacing Harry Brook. Harry Brook has to play. He's a first choice player now.
Jimmy Anderson spoke to Sam Ellard, and greetings to TalkSport listeners, by the way. You're joining us during a drinks break with New Zealand 106 for 9. So England just 1 wicket away from wrapping up victory. Their first victory here in New Zealand since 2008, when Stuart Broad was playing his 3rd Test match. He's now playing his 160th. If he plays at Wellington, he will equal Alistair Cook's Test cap record of 161. Either way, Jimmy Anderson was saying that Harry Brook is possibly the best batter in world cricket at the moment. Might be a little bit of hyperbole, but it does back your point that he's not going anywhere anytime soon. I tell you what, I'll let you finish that point that we were making about Harry Brook, and then about Johnny Bairstow, and then Neil Manthorpe will come in.
Yeah, I kind of slightly made a bit of a fool of myself last year. I saw Harry Brook play very early on in the season, and he got a mountain of runs, and I said I thought England should pick him, and of course I was inevitably asked who they should pick him instead of, and I said Johnny B, who then went on to have one of the most magnificent summers ever. So I was feeling a bit of a fool, but the way that Brook has played, I kind of don't feel so bad now. He is a remarkable young player, and he's a first choice pick in all formats now for England, 50 over, T20 and Test cricket. But these things have a habit of sorting themselves out. We're throwing things forward a few months, but usually these things sort themselves out. Somebody will lose form, or somebody will get an injury, and eventually it takes care of itself. For now, I think Stokes and McCullum and this England team are right to just focus on the here and now and what's right in front of them, take it game by game, and eventually the Ashes will come around.
It was very interesting, actually, listening to Steve Harmison speculate about where Johnny Bairstow would fit into this team right now. But you are so right. It's almost uncanny when you've got 12 or 13 that you want to play, how often somebody trips over an airport trolley or something is out injured at just the right time, wrong time for them. Daryl Mitchell's on strike. Drinks have been taken. Stuart Broad has an opportunity to complete a 5-wicket haul. He's just got the one slip in terms of close catching, because it was close catches. Everybody else is giving Daryl Mitchell a single.
There are 2 slips there, Manners.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh, well, there are. That's right. Yeah. Here's Broad once again, and that's pushed up straight back towards Broad. You know why I said that, don't you? Because your eye is immediately drawn to because you don't expect Ben Folkes to be standing up.
That's right.
to Stuart Broad. I wonder why Daryl Mitchell likes to bat so far out of his crease. And that's the reason he's standing up. Yesterday, he started batting. When Folkes was standing back, he was a yard out of his crease. Here is Broad again, bowls to Daryl Mitchell, turns it away behind square on the leg side.
If I was Stuart Broad and James Anderson, I'd be a bit sore with Ben Folkes standing up. I'd be thinking in 50 years' time, when if anybody looks back at the highlights of these great performers like Broad and Anderson, and they see Folkes standing up to the crease, and they'll be saying, well, they can't have been that quick.
Yeah, I mean, England's first win in New Zealand in almost 15 years, and there's Stuart Broad with a match-winning 5-wicket haul, and the keeper's standing up to him. Here is Broad once again for the Mount Maunganui end. Bowls to Mitchell.
Nice, lovely Broady, brilliant, mate.
Cross and pushes it, blocks it, straight back to the bowler, and there's no run. So Steve Harmison said, well, there's only one place for Johnny to bat, and that'll be to open. And I said to him, would you volunteer to tell him that?
I raised the possibility of keeping as well, but it's a long time since he's kept properly, or had a run of games as a keeper. And Folkes, of course, is doing pretty well himself.
Here's Broad again, and it's right up in the block hole, and semi-driven, blocked by Daryl Mitchell, straight back to the bowler. And there's no run. Everybody comes, or not. Is everybody coming in? Yes, they are. It's 4 balls gone, so little cat and mouse situation here. Exercise in futility, really. It's just going through the motions. New Zealand's batters. Blair Tickner, I'm told, once batted for 110 balls to help draw a domestic game, a Plunket Shield game, so can look after himself. Here's Broad then, bowling to Mitchell, and he's turned it away for 4 behind square on the leg side.
I captained a test match here in New Zealand where a very similar thing happened. If you imagine this was the 5th day, we'd got to New Zealand 9 down at lunchtime on the 5th day, and then Danny Morrison and Nathan Astle batted for 2 sessions to hold out, very famously in 1997. Even more famously, a journalist who's now departed, sadly, Chris Martin Jenkins, wrote it up as an England win, and by the time difference meant that by the time people reading it...
Broad in again to Mitchell, who's quite happy not to try and take a single off this delivery, and pushes it straight back to the bowler. 39 overs gone. New Zealand are 110 for 9. They're not going to score the 284 more runs that they need to win this game. That would be even more unlikely than the number 11 batting for 2 sessions.
Danny Morrison as well, who couldn't really bat, and then he was dropped for the next game. He never played for New Zealand again, so that was his last hurrah as a Test cricketer, a most famous rearguard.
Did you bring yourself on to bowl some leg breaks?
Well, I was captain, and it wasn't a good 4 hours, I can tell you that. Our manager was a guy called Bob Bennett. He got some champagne in to the bath in the dressing room. Champagne was lying waiting there on ice for about 4 hours. We never got to open it in the end.
Jack Leach is now going to bowl to number 11 Blair Tickner. 2 slips, a silly point, a catching cover, a short leg, a leg slip. Leach in, bowls, that's short, it's dragged out. And Tickner punches it out to cover broad fields. Who was your bowling attack?
Ooh, Mullally, Goff, Caddick maybe he came in for the next game. Tufnell, Croft.
Is Leach again, forward comes Tickner, playing defensively, no run.
Nathan Astle played magnificently, it must be said. It was
Was
a
that the game
strange.
he scored a double hundred?
No, that was a different game. Very fast double hundred in a game that Graham Thorpe also got a double hundred. That was the Series 97 that Stephen Fleming eventually came in as New Zealand's captain for the last game of that series at Christchurch. And he became a very fine New Zealand captain indeed.
Who did he replace?
Lee Jamon.
Oh, yes. Is Leach again and punched defensively off the back foot by Tickner.
Who I think now, I might be wrong, I think is the CEO of New South Wales Cricket.
Yes, he is, and he's, if anything, even better at that than he was at cricket. He's making a real impact in Sydney. Another close catcher coming in, or Ollie Pope just being shifted around a little bit straighter at silly point. Here's Leach again. He drops that. I think he tried to bowl that a bit quicker, and again it was a bit short. And Tickner able to play it very comfortably off the back foot, punching it out to cover. 5 round the bat then, and a catching cover, and that one is driven out towards Jimmy Anderson at mid-off. There is no run. 110 for 9. Here's Leach again. Tickner leaves one alone outside the off stump. Gary Morgan, our statistician, Michael, says that that game that you're referring to, Danny Morrison batted for 166 minutes, 133 balls, 14 not out. Astle made 102 not out, 214 balls. And your attack was Cork, Mullally, Goff, Tufnell, White.
White, yeah, we brought in Croft and Caddick for the next game. So I wasn't far off. He didn't quite bat for 2 sessions, but 3 hours is a hell of an effort from Danny Morrison, who couldn't really bat at all.
No, that's why we love Test cricket, isn't it? I'm sure you were loving it at the time.
It's also a lesson for journalists, you know, here in New Zealand with the time difference. For those writing pieces, you just cannot throw it forward at all because it just gets overtaken because of the time difference. You can only talk about what has happened, not what might happen.
I presume the Colonel, as he was affectionately known, Christopher Martin Jenkins, didn't file.
He did file. It went in the paper, and England win. Fairly certain.
Oh. That puts a different
These
slant
days,
on
of
things.
course, with digital first, you'd be fine. You just hurriedly rewrite and slap it up on the website. Those were pre-digital days.
Here is Stuart Broad again, bowls to Blair Tickner, to Daryl Mitchell. Not Blair Tickner. The field is spread. It's Daryl Mitchell on strike on 41.
It may be an apocryphal story, but it's one of those stories that does the rounds in the press box as a kind of cautionary tale, shall we say.
Well, the only one that I am aware of is along those lines is a one-day series in 2008 between South Africa and Australia, which was tied at 2-all, and Australia batted first in the decider. Here is Broad once again, right up into the block hole. Daryl Mitchell digs it out and will take a couple so that he ensures that he stays on strike. And of course, yeah, Australia made 434 in the decider at the Wanderers in South Africa, and the tabloid group in Australia, not the Sydney Morning Herald and the
Herald
Melbourne
Sun?
Age, the Herald Sun. They have a first edition which rolls off the press something like before midnight that goes into the country district areas. Here's Broad again, short, pulled nicely by Mitchell. Could have had a single if he'd wanted one, but decides against it. It's only the third ball of the over. There's only 5,000 papers, and they get taken off into the country districts areas and small towns in the outback, and they ran the story that Australia had produced a famous victory, and they it wasn't done by the correspondent, it was done by the sub-editors, and they wrote about Ricky Ponting's brilliant 170 in that game. So they're collector's items, those newspapers now. Here is Broad again, bowls short, pulled by Mitchell from outside the off stump through a vacant mid-on, and Jimmy Anderson's hoping it'll run for 4. He was chasing after it, not chasing after it, just escorting the ball to the boundary, because of course if it had reached the boundary, then it would have made no difference to England, and Daryl Mitchell would still been on strike. But it didn't reach the boundary, and Daryl Mitchell came back for 2, declined the opportunity to run a third. He's 45 not out. 5th fastest New Zealander to 1,000 runs.
Daryl Mitchell, good effort. He's a good player. Really gritty competitor.
Here's Broad again, bowls. It's short and it's pulled, and I think Daryl Mitchell might have been expecting that length, because he was in position exceptionally early, suspiciously early, and he's pulled it for 4 through mid-wicket. It's a very fine shot. There were 3 men on the leg side boundary. Takes him up to 49.
Well, England has seen a lot of him. He had a magnificent series last summer in England, often in company with Tom Blundell. And then he put England out of the World T20 in Abu Dhabi with a brilliant innings in a run chase there, when it looked a bit of a forlorn task for New Zealand. So he's a very good cricketer. England know all about him.
"22 innings to reach 1,000 runs, and he reached 1,000 runs in the first innings in this Test match. That was his 22nd innings. Here's Broad then, last ball of the over to Mitchell. He's looking for a single, and he won't get it because he's driven it straight to mid-off. It's fielded by Harry Brook. Those behind him, Jesse Ryder, 21 innings. Mark Richardson, 20 innings. John Reid, 20 innings. And the fastest, Devon Conway, 19 innings. Of course, he was an unbeaten double hundred. No, he wasn't unbeaten. Double hundred on debut against England at Lords. 118 for 9 here at Mount Maunganui, with New Zealand hanging on. They lost 3 wickets in the first 20 minutes, which put to bed any tiny hopes they might have had of. Well, I don't know really what the hopes would have been. You're never going to draw the game. The weather forecast is magnificent. It's a beautiful, beautiful sunny day. Barely a cloud in the sky. A couple out on the ocean, above the ocean, but over land, not a cloud in the sky. Sunny conditions, nice and warm, 24 degrees. And Jack Leach trying to win this Test match for England. It would be their first victory in New Zealand since March 2008. Since then, played 7. Lost 2, drawn 5. Here is Leach again, 5 men around the bat. Played defensively by Blair Tickner. And there's no run. Tickner, number 11, has 8. Daryl Mitchell has 49. The World Test Championship, Michael. I'm sort of slightly nervous about starting a conversation with you, because the Test match could end. Ben Stokes was asked how he felt about these tests not being part of the World Test Championship. Here's Leach. Forward comes Tickner playing defensively, and he said, yeah, strange. Does feel a bit
Well,
weird.
it is, and it's the more general point about the cricketing calendar and scheduling in general, which needs attention, put it that way.
Tickner blocks once again. What kind of attention?
Well, it's so chaotic, isn't it? So confused. If you're a supporter out there, to try and follow in any rational way what is happening in the world game at the moment is very, very difficult. I get lots of people coming to me and saying, I just can't I can't keep up with it. I don't know who's playing what, where, in what competition, and it's a combination of the fact that cricket has 3 formats, the fact that Leach is just blocked away by Blair Tickner there. I was rattling on as that ball happened. It's a consequence of 3 formats, isn't it, and the rise of franchise cricket, and it's just so confused at the moment.
Here's Leach once again to Tickner, and he steers it quite nicely behind square on the leg side. It's all well and good, specialist batsman turning down runs, but Blair Tickner's a number 11, and he looked rather forlornly at Daryl Mitchell there, didn't he?
Well, we saw in the first innings he's got a bit of stickability, hasn't he, Blair Tickner? What did he bat for? 53 minutes or something in the first innings to stick around?
Yeah, well, Blundell was on 96 when he came to the crease. He comes forward again, pushes it out on the onside, and there's no run. I really thought that we were going to see England home together, Michael, but I'm out of here. Dan McCarty will have the... I don't know how he'll feel about the New Zealand's fate falling his way, but yes, 118 for 9. A little bit more on the scheduling, and Dan will take over.
Well, the scheduling, the less said about it, the better. It's so confused. 2 test matches here, and COVID has had an impact as well. That the calendar this year, England are about to go to Bangladesh the day that this tour finishes for one-day games, and that's a hangover from COVID. So COVID has complicated matters as well, complicated what is already a very complicated and chaotic schedule. Certainly needs attention, but I don't envy the man who has to try and sort that out.
Afternoon, Athers. Good to see you. It's a very complicated world. I saw New Zealand play a Boxing Day test in Pakistan. Here is Mitchell getting a short one from Broad first ball. He pulls the ball away to deep backward square and duck it for a long dot ball. First ball of the over, of course, just trying to manufacture the strike. 118 for the loss of 9 New Zealand. The target is 394. They've lost Bracewell for 25, Kugeline 2, Southey without scoring, and Wagner for 9 today. Wickets falling at 68, 71, 71 and 91. We thought Jimmy Anderson might steer his first test match hat-trick. Not the case. Here's Broad looking for 5. He bowls short outside of off stump, and this is pulled away into a gap. Duckett has to race away to his left and field, and another dot.
Yeah, that's one area that Broad's got over Anderson, is the test hat-trick. Broad's got a couple from memory, but Anderson yet to get one of those. He had a chance today.
His reaction told me everything. He looked quite frustrated, and I'm being quite generous there. He looked rather dark on it. Here is Broad. Brilliant last night, wasn't he? Bowled slightly fuller, but from the crease line, squared up as Mitchell, pushing up towards mid-on. And there is no run. Anderson was, I described it earlier, he was back of the bus that Broad was feverishly driving downhill last night. Just excellent. And listening to him at the end of the day's play, speaking to Sam, it sounded so simple. I wanted to hit the wicket hard, but make sure I kept the top of off stump in play. Moves past umpire Dart. Oh, short. Mitchell pulls down to Duckett for a 3rd time this over. Again, no run.
The fact that he did bring the stumps into play also reflects on the length that he bowled, which is quite full. To hit the stumps at 6 foot 4 or 5, which Broad is, you've got to bowl quite a full length. And of course, that has been the difference under Stokes and McCullum, that even Broad and Anderson, these 2 old stagers, have bought into this idea that it doesn't matter if you give away runs. We're looking to hunt wickets all the time. And I admire the way that these guys have embraced this new philosophy. It's not always easy to do that when you're in the last stages of your career. And Root as well, as another senior player, he's embraced it.
Field comes in with 2 balls remaining. And this one is pulled just wide of the man at a shorter square leg. That is Pope, who dived athletically to his right. It races away out to the fence for 4. Lovely stroke. Another half century for Daryl Mitchell. He's very much enjoyed playing England over the last 18 odd months. The obvious exception, padding up with no stroke in the first innings of this test. But his 53 is a lone, bright point on an otherwise ugly looking scorecard. 122 for 9, his 50 off 94 balls, 5 fours and 2 sixes.
Well, it was a hell of a way to bring it up. He really crunched that short ball from Broad. There were 3 or 4 men in almost an arc waiting for it on the leg side, but it flashed past them. He really did give it a thump.
This is an interesting field. Mid-on, mid-wicket, forward square leg, shorter square leg, and a backward square leg. All in, if you can sort of visualise a one-day field, all inside the ring. Real ring field. Last ball of the over. Yorker attempt turns into a low full toss, punching up to Jimmy Anderson. Can't beat the inner circle and get runs. So England will be able to bowl to Blair Tickner to start the new over. 122 for the loss of 9, chasing 394.
What's the Matt Henry is the obvious angle for New Zealand, looking at their team and how they might change things up for Wellington. Is that the only change, do you think?
Well, he was originally named in the squad for this test match, was unable to play due to the arrival of a child, hence Kugeline came in. You tend not to see spinners profit all that much in Wellington, but Bracewell's in as the all-rounder. I think he'll maintain his spot. Bowled quite well yesterday, I thought, Bracewell. So
Henry for Kugeline.
Kugeline would be the logical one. I'd be interested to get your observation of the 2 men on debut. Who you've seen a lot of cricket at the Basin Reserve. Who looks more likely to be threatening to a pretty good English batting lineup?
Well, I suppose Blair Tickner was in the squad originally, and that's the point that you made. Matt Henry had to pull out because he was awaiting the birth of his child, so he had the nod over Kugeline initially. You wouldn't say Kugeline has done enough to displace that.
Anderson from the city end, bowling a bouncer that goes over the top of off stump as the tall Tickner goes underneath.
They won't panic, New Zealand. I was looking at their record. They've got a very strong record. They've only lost, I think, 3 test matches at home in the last 5 years, although worryingly 2 of those have come since January 22. This would be a 3rd. Just a suspicion that the team has peaked and is coming a little bit down.
No doubt about that, Michael. Here is Anderson bowling shorter outside of off stump and backing away rather awkwardly as Tickner does the job. He gets out of the line. John asked me at the start of the day's play in our preview, would this game against England be the tipping point for New Zealand's sort of decline? I said it was actually last year. It was that surprising loss to Bangladesh.
Here, wasn't it, to Bangladesh? By an innings or no? A heavy defeat.
Heavy defeat. Incredible performance from Bangladesh. Middle, lower order with the bat, gave them a great score, and then Ibadot Hassan bowled brilliantly. Here's a lifting delivery down the leg side, up they go behind the wicket, but clearly no noise. He got the ball to reverse swing, he bowled brilliantly, and it's a famous victory for Bangladesh. New Zealand then respond, I think it was an innings victory over South Africa, then lost the following test. Worrying sides there, and then in Pakistan it was a long break after that. Went to England, of course. Lost 3-0. Probably 2 test matches they failed heading into the 4th innings. They had a great chance. Here's a nasty ball that's hit the hands of Tickner and ballooned towards the gully. It's taken on the onside. His hand looked off the bat. Or was it the forearm? It's certainly a woody type of sound, was there not, Michael?
Yes, a bony type of sound. It was a cross-seamer from Anderson short, and it hit Tickner right on the point of the elbow of his leading arm, his left arm, as he turned his back. It looked a very nasty blow. I always think bowlers should wear arm guards, actually, because you don't want to miss a game because you're not wearing an arm guard.
Anderson again shorter and almost jumping out of the way and getting an outside edge as Tickner as it goes straight to ground and into the second slip region.
Well, Anderson is giving a bit back here because the number of times he's come in as number 11 for England and faced a barrage, not least last night actually when he came in. Kugeline let him have a couple. So he's very happy to dish it out because he gets plenty himself.
He's got 4 slips, 2 catching behind the wicket on the onside. This one bounces sharply, armpit high. I'll say again, Tickner's a very tall man, gets the hands high, out of the way, Athers will depart. Probably won't see you to Wellington, Athers. Look forward to that. So at the end of the over, 122 for the loss of 9. Mitchell is 53. Tickner has fought very hard for 42 minutes. He did a great job with the bat in helping Tom Blundell get through to 100 in the first innings of the Test match. I think he was a little bit wild with the ball in the first innings. Perfect time for Harmy to come in and offer his take on this. I thought with the ball he was better in the second innings, rewarded with a couple of wickets, a couple of genuine wickets as well. That the Folkes one especially sticks out. Had a much better, more consistent line and lean, Tickner. And well, he's battled away for 43 minutes, 9 down.
You're right. He's battered. He showed some guts and determination. Is what you'd expect from somebody who was born and bred in New Zealand. That's what the New Zealand mantra is in sport. They don't give in. The fight for everything that they possibly can, get any ounce out of themselves. And I would say, other than the first 4 overs of Blair Tickner's bowling throughout this Test match, I think he's done a reasonable job. He's bowled one side of the wicket. He's given his captain a little bit of control. He's got a few wickets by building pressure. And when he's batted, he's got one guy to 100 and one guy to 50. He can't ask for anything more.
Here's Stuart Broad bowling to Mitchell into his hip, and he'll work him down to the very fine leg. That is Crawley. Will clearly not take a run as he continues to try and take as much of the strike as possible.
He wasn't the only one who didn't bowl very well in that first innings. I think there was quite a few nervous New Zealand bowlers. Is there a question mark on Tim Southey's decision at the toss because of the 2 debutants that he had? I still think he made the right call. His bowlers just didn't bowl very well.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Here is Broad, past umpire from over the wicket, short, outside of off stump, pulled away comfortably down towards Duckett. Another dot, no run. Mitchell remains 53.
Daryl Mitchell, again, another one, a little bit of a brain fade in the first innings. If you hadn't sort of left one that sort of cannoned into his pad, he's looked very, very accomplished throughout his international career, especially against England. He's 5th quickest to get to 1,000 Test runs for New Zealand, averaging 55 in the process in Test match cricket. You can get out early doors against this bowling attack.
Broad brings them onto the front foot. He drives uppishly as it slices off the outside edge through backward point down to the fence for 4. Bowling from Broad on a complete control was Mitchell, another 4. He's 57. 6-4, 126 for 9.
Good area from Stuart Broad, trying everything he possibly can to get Daryl Mitchell to play. And the one thing Daryl Mitchell's not doing is going into his shell. He's not as though he's playing, he's facing 4 or 5 balls and over, but he's not defending them. He's getting the short ball, he's having a go at it, and if there's one up there on offer, he's driving it as well.
Broad in again, short outside of off stump, pulled away to mid-wicket, no run. Mitchell loves the fight, there's no doubt about that. He very much enjoys playing this quality English side, approaching 600 runs in the last 4 tests against them. That's some going.
It is some going, and he's batted very, very well, but he's done what England have done, not quite as sort of fast forward as what England batters have done, but he's basically said, I'll respect the good ball that you bowl to me, and if you bowl anything offline, or if you bowl short, or you give me any width, I'll hit it, I'll have a go at it. And that's why, and Tom Blundell did the same, very much did the same. Picked the right short ball to go at, and if it was up driven, he drove it, put pressure back onto the England bowlers.
Here's Broad, 2 balls remaining in the over. He goes full on off stump, pushed straight back to the bowler, who's quickly down to his left of field. We've got the back 4 on the onside, playing a flat back 4 it seems, England at the moment, with what backward square leg, forward square leg, and 2 mid wickets, all in a line.
You look at England's lineup at this minute in time, and they are playing like a defensive team that would play against a Man City or a Liverpool. They've got a flat back 4 with 2 wing backs, so they're playing with a back 6. 2 wide lads who are doing very, very little on the sort of higher wide and right. It's a bit like Newcastle at the minute. And Ollie Pope standing in the middle of the field by himself. As normally would you play against a Liverpool or a Manchester United or an Arsenal at this minute in time. So isolated and so by himself that he's probably having a good talking to himself and a good conversation with oneself. But the ball looks as though it's going to get changed Stuart Broad has asked Alim Dar to put the ball through the hoops that the umpires have got. Hasn't gone through, and fourth umpire is now coming out, so we've got another break in play.
Yeah, Chris Brown's wandering out with the suitcase. No, it's not a suitcase, is it? Yeah, the caused the silver case. I'm surprised they're not handcuffed to the fourth umpires. It does look like out of a spy movie.
It does look out of a spy movie. The trumpeters just played the theme tune to Only Fools and Horses, and it does look like one of Del Boy's suitcases. That a bit like what was it, to Hullenbach when he went to Amsterdam for the diamonds, and the case was chained to his wrist when he went there and back on the Zeebrugge to Hull ferry. Brilliant, Only Fools and Horses. I love it. The trumpeter used to play it when I was there, obviously playing, because they knew how much I loved it. What a great episode that was. Uncle Albert sort of looking out to sea, trying to find his way back to Hull, and spots the Zeebrugge to Hull ferry. But unfortunately for typical Del and Albert and Rodney, it was going the wrong way, so they followed it to Zeebrugge and then they followed it back to Hull. Oh, what a show that was. Brilliant. Comedy that will never ever die. Only Fools and Horses.
Fantastic stuff for sure. So the ball has been changed. So this back four with the wing backs, all on the on side of the wicket. You've got a mid-on. These two mid-wickets who are virtually side-by-side. Two square legs who were side-by-side. But Stokes, who was the finer of the two, just backward of square, has actually come to join Leach. A second leg gully now. A slip. Regulation gully. A lone, lowly figure. Shorter section recover. Here is Broad with the last ball of the over. Pulled into the heart of the defensive line, but good fielding by the central defender. Pope diving away to his left, preventing a shot on goal. The end of the over, 126 for the loss of 9. Well, England's done the job there. Once more, Tickner will have to face up to Anderson from the first ball of the over. Partnerships were 35 for the last wicket, over 49 minutes. 126 for the loss of 9. Still 268 runs away from victory, though, in New Zealand.
They really have put a good fight up for this last wicket. It always happens, Dan. You go with a game thinking, right, it's going to be one-sided this morning. It was always going to be. There was going to be a partnership. Then there was going to be a bang, bang, bang. And the game finishing where you'd thought very, very quickly. But there's always somebody that sort of puts a sting in the opposition's tail. And to be fair, Darryl Mitchell's done a wonderful job while the chaos was going around. And just to go about his own business, which is to, if it's there on offer, I'm going to be positive and hit it.
Here is Anderson with 7 catches around the bat. He starts short of a length and jumping into a defensive stroke is Tickner, jumping up and back at the same time as he defends a ball on middle and leg. So 4 slips, 4 in the corner, 1 leg slip, so there's 5. Man under the helmet on the onside, the man under the helmet on the offside. And that's good to see. That's the captain going under the helmet. That's leadership there.
That is leadership. Ben Stokes gone under the helmet. Jimmy Anderson's bowler, back of a length ball going in towards leg stump. Blair Tickner backed away and sort of tried to play it off the back foot. And this is what's going to happen here. Jimmy Anderson's going to bowl 1 or 2 more in and around sort of top of the stumps. Yeah, the sort of inner thigh of Blair Tickner, and he's going to give him something full to have a go at and drive in and around that off stump.
It's Fuller. He's dropping forward from the crease, just a half stride as he pushes up towards mid-on, no run.
That's the experience of Jimmy Anderson. Will probably see in this at this minute in time. Can I get Blair Tickner to play more, back foot shots, trying to get him moving away towards leg stump, so the ball will be running into him. And Jimmy, when he feels as though it's right, he can try and expose the stumps if he feels Blair Tickner has got to see off stump.
This one through into the off stump, and England have victory. Emphatically so. Anderson picking up his 4th. Tickner not good enough to keep that one out. And England have galloped away over the last day or so to win with real style. A win by 267 runs. New Zealand swept aside in their second innings, bowled out for just 126. England have another win under their belt. That's 10 in the last 11. And their first win in New Zealand since 2008. Steve Harmison, oh so impressive in nearly every facet.
Yes, it's been a thoroughly clinical performance by this England cricket team. Again, the top of off stump has been hit by one of the greats of all time, Jimmy Anderson. I mentioned before, he just bowled a couple of balls in towards Blair Tickner's middling leg, and that one gone on to off stump. Thoroughly deserved the win. I think England have out-bowled, out-batted and outfielded New Zealand. I think the best team have won here by a country mile. Spare a thought for Darren Mitchell, who I think has played very, very well in this second innings, showing some fight. But all credit to the two of the greatest of all time, Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad. Stuart Broad 4 for 49 of his 15 overs, and Jimmy Anderson 4 for 18 of 10.3 overs. They broke the record. It's gone past the record of Warne and McGrath for the all-time wickets taken as a pair together. And at this minute in time, they are walking not quite arm in arm. Well, they are now arm in arm towards the steps, up towards the pavilion to celebrate, probably with a beer or two or three. It's been absolutely magnificent. A standing ovation from all the England supporters. I think it is just the England supporters in the ground today. And they thoroughly deserve that, because the England cricket team, from the minute Tim Southey won the toss, just under 4 days ago, they've been worthy victors. And when you look at fast forward, what can New Zealand do, the changes that they can possibly make, we can discuss about later on and following on. But at this minute in time, it doesn't matter who New Zealand pick. It's about the England cricket team. And if England turn up like this in Wellington, it would not surprise me to them to go to a series victory for the first time since 2008.
267 run victory for England. New Zealand wrapped up before the end of the first session here on day number 4. All out for 126, starting the day with Bracewell and Mitchell together. They lost Bracewell for 25, Kugelheim for 2, Southey without scoring, Wagner for 9, and Tickner the last to go. Valiant effort by the number 11, batting about 45 minutes, making 8. But nowhere near that ominous target they were set, as England have another win. As mentioned, now 10 of their last 11 test matches have ended in an English victory. The last time they achieved something along those lines was when they won 11 out of 12 tests in 2004. 3 wins and 1 draw in the Caribbean, 3 wins versus New Zealand in England, 4 wins versus the West Indies, and 1 versus South Africa in South Africa. This is England's 6th test win in a row as well. Last time they won 6 tests in a row was in 2010, with 4 tests versus Bangladesh, 2 in each country, and 2 test victories also against Pakistan. England have now won their last 4 consecutive tests away from home. Previous time that happened was a run of 6 wins, 3 against South Africa and 3 against Sri Lanka in 2020 and 2021. They're racking up the numbers, they're racking up the milestones, they're racking up the records. And it's fun to watch, even if you're a Kiwi.
It is fun to watch, and it's brilliant. You know, talking about the numbers, and the one series that stuck out there was the 11 from 12 in 2004, which I was fortunate to be part of that side, and it was a fantastic side. The only game that we didn't win was the one that Brian Lara got 400 in, and still having nightmares about that, because I still see Alim Dar was in. I think it was Alim Dar. He didn't give him out first up when we should have won 12 out of 12. But look, I'm not bitter about that, am I? No. It's fantastic watching this side. Yeah. It really is. Do you know what, Dan? I look at this side and I hate comparing eras. I really do. I hate comparing eras. Is he better than such and such? Is he better than such and such? Is this team better than such and such? I'm not going to say that this is the best team that England have ever produced, but I tell you what it is. It's the most enjoyable team to watch. Geez, these are the most enjoyable team to watch. It's fantastic how these guys are day in, day out, just raising the level of the bar of international test match cricket. Is test match cricket dwindling? Possibly. Are England taking it to a level that, hopefully, that fingers crossed, they'll want to make young players play test match cricket? I'd like to think so, but for me, in my lifetime, I think this is the most enjoyable England cricket team I have seen represent our country, and the longer it carries on, the better. Brendan McCullum, huge amount of credit. Rob Key, huge amount of credit. But the bloke that's got to take for me, it takes the most credit is the bloke that leads it and the bloke that pushes the plans, pushes his players, and looks at how he feels as though it's best on any given surface in any given test match to try and win. And that for me is Ben Stokes. A huge amount of credit more credit to Ben Stokes than anybody else, because he's the one that had this vision and he's the one that's made these players, top players, whether it's young Harry Brook, young Ollie Pope, or it's, I'm not going to say old, but it's the more seasonal Broad or Anderson. They've gone with him, they've bought into it, and the cricket that the England cricket test team's playing is frightening. And do you know what? I think they've still got a little bit more in them, and that will be tested not only in Wellington or against Ireland, but more importantly against Australia in the summer in the Ashes.
I'll just quickly wrap the scorecard, then hand over to Manners, who can stay with Harvey. So New Zealand were set 394 runs for victory. They lost Conway at 4-2, Williamson without scoring, Latham for 15, Nichols for 7, Blundell for 1 in a frantic last session last night. Stuart Broad picking up 4 of those 5, all bowled as far as Broad was concerned. That left Mitchell and Bracewell to start today on 13 and 25 respectively. Bracewell didn't add to his overnight score. Kugelheim gone, LBW bowled Anderson for 2. Anderson then got Tim Southey out, caught Root behind the wicket. Very next ball, Neil Wagner made 9 before he was caught behind, also off Anderson, before Anderson had the final act, bowling Blair Tickner for 8, leaving Daryl Mitchell unbeaten on 57 not out. New Zealand 126 all out. Anderson 4 for 18 off 10.3 overs. Stuart Broad 15 overs, 5 maidens, 4 for 49. Broad started the damage, Anderson ended it. Anderson finishes with figures in this match of 7 for 54. You can ponder my final question to you, Harmy. Who gets man of the match? Ollie Robinson, 1 for 34. He got 4 in the first innings. Let's not forget that. Well, Jack Leach did a very good job as well. 1 for 25 off 11 overs.